I'd like to call to order the work session on February 12th, 2018. It's now 4:30. I'd like to announce everyone is present but Councilman Stipp, and he is going to be on the phone for this work session. So, Bill, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You probably can speak up a little louder. Say one more thing for it. Give me the alphabet. No, go ahead. Say something one more time.
I'm trying. I'm working the best I can with a hotel phone.
That's perfect. Thank you. And any time in this, you remind me, okay? All right, so we'll go to the agenda. We have 3 agenda items tonight. Now, Council, I'd like you to refrain, as usual, from asking questions until the staff presentations are finished. So 3.1, staff will present a summary of the city's sanitation program. The purpose of this presentation is to identify any potential changes in policy that will require staff to research and, of course, present to Council for consideration as far as the FY20 budget process. Hello, Barbara Chappell, Interim Public Works Director, will be presenting. Barbara?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight I'm going to briefly summarize our current services, share some of the findings from a recent sanitation study that was completed, and discuss some policies that we are looking at. Just for timing, we'll also be going out for a request for proposals for sanitation soon, and so we're here tonight to seek some feedback in a couple of areas prior to doing so. Gotta get my slides going here. Okay, so our residential contained program is serviced under a contract with Waste Management. During the term of the contract, the program has grown from just over 17,000 accounts to just under 28,000. The contract includes recycling and processing as well as refuse disposal via their transfer station, and the contract expires on June 30th of 2019. The bulk collection is provided by city staff once per month. Household hazardous waste is provided twice per year through a regional effort with Avondale, Litchfield Park, and Tolleson. The event has become so well attended. At our last Goodyear hosted event, which was this past November, we collected a total of 45,321 pounds of household hazardous waste. We had over 6,000 pounds of electronic waste from 624 vehicles. 474 of those were Goodyear residents. Our next event, it's a plug for it, scheduled on Saturday, March 31st, and this one will be held in Avondale. You may recall last year we had a supplemental to complete a sanitation study. We contracted with Burns McDonnell, and they looked at everything sanitation. Some items of note that came out of our study were that Goodyear residents generate a relatively small amount of refuse. They generated 30 pounds per week as compared to Surprise, Queen Creek, and Glendale, who collected 40 pounds per household per week. Our residents also recycle in large amounts. They recycled, on average, 560 pounds of material per household in FY17, compared to a 2016 report nationwide, 364 pounds. So, very good. The quality of our recycling is measured by contamination rates. So that's when garbage or items that aren't recyclable wind up in those blue bins or green bins. So our rates vary, and we're trying to accurately characterize our recycling prior to the RFP hitting the street. According to our study, Goodyear provides the highest level of service in our bulk program. I'm very proud to say that. Our staff are picking up on a scheduled date throughout the month. No other city can say that they do that. So there was a lot of discussion about how great our guys perform that. Okay, so last summer, Council recommended that we look at and prepare how we respond to our extra debris that's generated during storm programs. So we are developing a program to address these uncommon events, and you'll see a request coming through our budget process on how we'll be planning for those in the future. The study recommended shifting all services curbside. Alleys require special equipment, and they pose safety concerns to our staff. They also found that only 396 of our customers are serviced through the alleys, and their recycling is already out at the curb, so it should be a pretty easy transition for those 396 residents to put everything out at the curb. One of the areas we also wanted to look at is expanding our furlough program. Currently, we only allow furloughs for medical reasons or those that are deployed for service. We've got a lot of requests from residents to extend who we offer those to. Level of service, specifically for the bulk and the HHW. We're here tonight to get some feedback from council on their feelings in this area. And there is a need to increase our efforts in education and outreach to improve the quality of our recyclables. Contaminated recyclables are not marketable and ultimately wind up at the landfill, impacting the cost of the program. So it's really got a monetary value to those. So our next steps moving forward, we're going to be performing some audits on our recycled materials so we get a good handle on what those contamination rates are. Will translate into an overall cost of the program. We're going to issue a request for proposals by the end of March. This will be to gauge the market. The study shows that bringing it in-house is a possibility for approximately the same cost that we're outsourcing it for now. But in order to really make a judgment, we need to gauge the market and see what those vendors' costs will bring. There is some competition in the valley. We're here in a metropolis, so there's multiple vendors. We're looking at our routes and how we can level out our daily workload and transitioning those alley services to the curb at the same time so that we'll have one single rollout of some changes. Staff will be reviewing our current ordinance and research other cities to develop possible furlough program changes. And we're looking to council for input on whether you would like us to explore changes to levels of service, for example, increasing our household hazardous waste events or changing the way we offer them, or changing the number of our bulk pickups per year. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Nice information, Barbara. All right, discussion for the council. Would like to start first.
Okay.
All right, Joanne?
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. So, first of all, it sounds like I was going to ask the question about the contamination with the recyclables, but I mean, you were telling us how well our people are recycling, you know, with the most poundage across the valley or something like that, or compared to the nation, really. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like there's concern that there's a lot of contamination that would really lower us, but I guess you don't have any answer to that yet, huh?
So no, currently we've had some audit results from Waste Management that have been a little sporadic. So we're trying to get a good handle. We had a recent audit by them, which we oversaw, and it looked like we would have some really good results. We haven't got that report yet. And this week we're performing one on our own. So it's really a matter of being able to isolate the items that are in that vehicle and ensuring, and then counting how much contamination or residual is in there.
So I guess the two items that I would like to hear how the rest of the council feels, just because the furlough issue has certainly we've heard for years, and it's always been a tough thing to decide how do we work this. But I'm curious if there was a solution of saying, you know, people that leave for months at a time, if they're willing to give up their trash cans, you know, and say, okay, I'd like 3 months off for this. Here's my trash cans, and then I'll call back when I'm back in town, and then I can get them back. Then I don't see that being a problem, you know. But I need to hear from you guys if that means that, oh, it's a pain, you know, we're out picking up trash cans every single day, then that's a problem. Or if it's something like, well, on the 1st and the 15th we're allowing citizens to turn their trash can in so they can, not pay for the next 3 months. I'm just curious what kind of feedback you're getting, creativity to how this can work. I understand a lot of citizens ask for that time off.
Yeah. So you're finished. So while you do this, anybody else have any more comments on this?
I do.
On what she said? Yeah, Wally?
All right. I don't know how we can do this to have them turn it on and off because we still have to have the same amount of people collecting the garbage or whatever. I know that when my husband and I owned a second home in Gig Harbor, Washington, we paid full utilities. They didn't care how long we were there or whatever. We had to pay in order to have the service. And we really looked into shutting all the utilities down and then firing them back up, but then it was another deposit and this, that, and the other. So I would like to know what other cities do. And I do know we have a lot of folks who are snowbirds that are here. And I know they don't want to pay for the garbage. I don't know if the water Liberty Utilities allows them in the north to stop paying a water bill while they're gone. I don't know that. I've not looked into it, but that's something we need to think about because we can't lose money on it and turning it or picking up and I don't know. I have the largest garbage can you can buy from Goodyear. I have the largest recycling from Goodyear, and my husband says I'm a very trashy person because they're always full. And then I walk the neighborhood, and any of my neighbors that have theirs somewhat empty, I knock on their door and put stuff in. But my husband said we could never leave town because I couldn't do without the garbage service. So, but I'd be interested. I'd like you to look into all of that, so that maybe we could have another conversation on it. It's really hard to judge what other cities do.
Joe?
A couple things. I think it would be helpful what it costs to pick up and to deliver it back, because from a number standpoint, 3 months may be the break-even point. If you charge $40 to pick it up and $40 to take it back out there at $80, and their rate is $25, break-even may be 3 months. So it may cost them absolutely, their savings may be zero if it's a 3 months. I think it would be helpful to see how the other cities do, because I think it's important that you have to pick it up if you cancel it, because otherwise others will be using it or whatever, which means you'll have to take it back. And it just kind of costs a fee to do that because it's time for staff to pick it up and it's time for staff to deliver it. So I think those two pieces need to be part of any type of discussion on what you're going to do with the actual trash pickup. I hear it, but not as often probably as you do, Wally, there in but I don't hear it that often, except that they're not using it, so I pay for it. But at the same token, I know that you can't leave it there because then somebody else will use it. And to keep track of it, it's going to be a little more effort on staff to know that, hey, we picked these up. So you want to make sure that at some point you call back to make sure somebody's still there. Otherwise, they're going to be sharing trash cans and et cetera. So I know that part gets kind of complicated. And my other question is with state statutes. Is there any conflict with state statutes? Because I know they have to have a sanitation service. So is there any complications with state statutes on picking them up? I don't know. And the follow-up on the others on what are others doing? It would be nice to know that. So that's
Gary?
fine.
Yeah, I hear it too, because we've got a lot of people up in Australia or up in Canamia that, are part-time residents are from Canada. They only come down for a few months. So I don't know logistically. It'd be great if there was some sort of like technology that could say this house is closed or what, but I don't think we have anything like that. And just putting the can out there, then picking up, returning it. I know we have a home in Prescott that we just don't get. We just don't get it, so we don't have to go to the back, and we don't go up there enough to use it, so we didn't pay for it. We don't have a can, period. We just don't use it. So I think if someone wants to opt out, but then I don't know what they're going to do with their garbage. So I really don't know how we can accomplish this. I think I agree. We got to see what the break-even point is, because I just don't see how we can accomplish this in a city this size to, you know, are you going to be gone for 3 months? Someone else is gone for 4 months. Their 3 months starts in March. Your 3 months starts in April. I mean, it just seems a lot of logistics for staff to try to figure this out. If there was like a little beeper or something on the can, you know, an RFI device, I'm serious, an RFI device or something that as you're driving around, the truck could register who to pick up, that might be different, but I just don't see how you're going to do that. Otherwise, it seems. Yeah, but automatic technology will get there someday, you know. But I don't see how you could do it. If someone has a great idea how to do it, it works fine. Then our residents can do it. I'm okay, but I'm just not seeing it.
Brandon?
Yeah, I agree with everybody else. Look at the numbers, but I think the only email or anything I've ever seen from a resident is they're more concerned. They want to split the water and the sewer or the water and the trash can service in their bill. I don't think they can do that right now, right? Is that true? So I think that's the only thing that I'll turn off my water, but I'll keep the trash can. I think that was the main thing. Like while I'm gone, I want to be able to do one or the other. I'll keep the trash can in my garage. It'll be empty. I'll pay that. I want to pay. I don't mind paying keeping that, but the water I want on and off. But I don't know. That's the only feedback I've gotten. Everybody else seems like it's fine.
Bill, before I speak, any comments?
You know, I agree with what everyone has said. I am concerned about the concept of, you know, what Brandon just mentioned, the splitting of the bills. I think we're going to make a system too complicated to operate. But secondarily to that, I do like Joe's comment of if we're going to pick up the can, which I think we should, because otherwise, I'm just going to take a 3-month furlough from my paying my garbage bill, and I'm going to continue to use garbage and not pay for it. I think the fee, we need to break that even over a 3-month period. That if you're going to do it, you're going to do it for longer than 3 months. But we get the can. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm only curious what other communities are doing, but I think at some point we need to decide what do we want to do in our community and not base it solely on what everyone else is doing. But I think having a little bit of background information would be very helpful for us to make a well-informed decision. So I don't think I have anything new to add. I just want to offer my perspective on what I've heard, and I really don't have any other comments. Well, I do. I'm sorry. Barbara mentioned that the study talked about the costs for contracting it versus doing it in-house are virtually the same. Did that take into consideration the upfront capital costs and ongoing maintenance of those?
Yes, it did. It was a high-level study, so we really need to do the RFP to gauge the market before we can really make a decision.
Yeah, and I think that I'm concerned about how high of a level that was, you know, because that style of trash truck is not cheap, and sometimes I think we really have to look at it and say, can we as government do this cheaper than the private industry can? So I think we need to look very long and hard at that before we decide to dump a multi-million-dollar contract that has a lot of capital resources dedicated to it. So I'm okay with all of that. I think I just caution us on saying, it's time for us to take it in-house when, in fact, it may not be. But that's all I've got. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to talk before somebody else, because I want my opinion in here before I don't have the opportunity. I can understand all your pursuits and asking about this. You're always concerned to have best service for your customer. But I've been here and I've seen it. And unfortunately, people don't do what you want them to do about the trash cans. The reason we changed the whole process was there were several neighborhood after neighborhood not abiding by that. So you never knew if they came back. They had their trash can, so they put it out there. Then they left again. And we have several residents throughout the city that are from foreign countries that they come back more than once a year. They run in and so they can legally be in so long, and they run back out again. And they want the water turned on, and they want it turned off, and they want the trash put in, and that's all wonderful. It didn't pencil out. We were losing money, and we weren't giving good service, because then people are complaining because you can't abide by what they want. We went to outside from the city because it was more efficient. The cost of keeping the trucks up, the cost of all of the other things was really high. And now there is new advancement in what do we call them, trash haulers? That's such a rude thing. There must be some nice name to put it, some modern name. But they now have an advancement. And the advance, when you hear about it, and you'll hear about it soon, is so extraordinary and so good for our environment that I can tell you my answer to what you want, I'd say no, just because I can see the future. Just look at some of the magazines that are coming out on it. They're changing. They're worried about carbon. They're worried about all different things. So I am not. I'll listen, and if I see that it is worthwhile on cost, I certainly will collaborate and cooperate with y'all. But firsthand, I can tell you, for me, it's a big X. So you'll have to do a lot of convincing, a lot of proof that this would work for your mayor. So I'm done talking, so I'll let you talk now, Joe.
No, I just want to piggyback up what Councilman Stipp had mentioned. We have a lot of new programs coming on, and even if we were even with outsources versus insourcing, I am not inclined to bring any new programs in with that kind of money. We're looking at ambulance, we're looking at a variety of things, and as Councilman Stipp had mentioned, those trucks aren't cheap. So from my perspective, I would prefer, and what I heard today in our meeting, from a cost standpoint, you should be very pleased when your RFP goes out, from what I heard, as far as cost increases on what the industry is doing right now. So I just caution council to think about going in and spending millions of dollars, whether you absorb it all from your cash reserves or whether you borrow the money. I don't think it's a wise decision with everything we're looking to do now.
Yes, Joanne?
Thank you. Well, I certainly wasn't looking at us taking on trash services ourselves. I mean, that's a big ordeal that would, I don't think we're there. But, I mean, you're going to have to prove it, I guess, if that is what everyone's thinking. I didn't think, I was getting the feeling that we were trying to take that on. The only other thing that I was going to ask about, and I know I asked this as the business person in the room, but has that ever been looked at to allow for either a recycling program for the businesses here in town, or you know, I know either every center or every business gets their own large, you know, receptacles that they, you know, do offline on their own, and that's fine. But I back to our recycling program. I would just love to see if there was something that we could do that, because my goodness, you think as individuals we go through paper and glass, you can only imagine what businesses go through. And so, you know, I would love to see something either, and I mentioned it when our one-on-ones with Waste Management today, or whoever the company is or whatever we do, is there a way for our businesses, either by center or by office complex or whatever, to have some kind of program that we help collaborate the groups together in businesses and recycling. I just think that you would find that there's a great deal of stuff out there that we could, you know, help, and it might even help our own numbers when we're looking at our own program with the individuals. If we're adding, you know, office paper and all that with it, you know, it may be an outstanding savings.
Jerry?
Yeah, I think we got the two issues that are kind of going around now. I don't think, I'm not a fan of us taking it on our own trash service, because even if we do get the equipment now, then we've got to have a whole nother replacement fund for that, like we do the other equipment, and that's something else that we have to fund ahead and continue to fund. I am obviously for us looking for the best rate and maybe not as long a contract as what we got locked into, has a little more flexibility for us, because that was one thing I heard when we were adding the storm damage. We already have a contract and we can't add that in. So for me, the flexibility is important. I know we've talked about, now that we have a new contract, to look at the businesses, because I'm sure a lot of businesses, you look at the grocery stores with the cardboard and everything, to recycle that would be a good idea. Now that we're having a new contract, we can put that on the table as part of the contract, and I think that needs to be a discussion when we go out for bid. I agree.
Brandon?
Yeah, when I was talking earlier, I was talking about just that specific thing. So, yeah, I would agree that I don't like like to look at all the numbers, but I'm right now not looking towards taking it on ourselves. I mean, like to looking at other organizations to take on that for now. I mean, while still looking for opportunities, like I know we took on the cans themselves. That was different than in the past. So if there's other things that we can enhance that make sense, then I'm open to that. But the whole buying new trucks and things like that, I don't think that's right for us at this moment, but I'd have to look at the numbers.
Well, the one nice thing, and I am hearing that any advancement or changes that you'd like to hear about. So you kind of heard what their questions were and things they suggested. So there's still some wiggle room there to bring some information to them. And then I would hope at the same time you'd bring some advanced information on the industry, because there's a big change in it recently. So I'd like to make sure that you have that. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Wally. I thought you were finished.
Can I talk? Well, I haven't talked yet, except for the.
I thought you did. I'm sorry.
Thing.
Go ahead.
That's okay. I didn't know we were, is this the open discussion real quick with her?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
I made my list. Okay, I love having the bulk pickup once a month. That's why our city looks so good, because if we can't pick it up that quickly, those of us that live in some of the developments, we have no place to store. We can't put them beside the house or in the house or whatever. And it's just absolutely critical that we continue to do the bulk, and I'd like to see it in the contract if all of y'all agree. I know Phoenix does it once a year, and oh my goodness gracious, they're jealous that we do it every month. That's why we look so nice. I like the continuous hazardous waste, because we still have residents that don't know how to get rid of paint, and they do not know how to get rid of their electronic materials. And alleys are extremely important to us here in Goodyear, because we have a couple of subdivisions that have alleys. And while no one really claims ownership, sometimes the HOA, they don't even have an HOA. The group that kind of cleans up themselves are back there trying to clean up, but then people use it as a dump. So if there was some way we could be mindful that this is a need in some sections of our city, perhaps not all. I don't have an alley, but there are. It's just something that I think is important. North subdivision.
You wonder if that picture they showed was that our neighborhood. That was my first. Is
I
that
think
true?
that was from historic.
That was where she's referring to.
Yeah, North subdivision, I bet, or historic, one or the other. But those wonderful residents themselves clean and clean and clean. When they clean it up, then they don't have any place to take the junk they got out, because some people dump. So if perhaps we could just even do it once a year or once every 6 months or something, that would be wonderful. I like that you're going to take a look at the routes to see if we're doing, if our routes are wise and they're saving us money and we are getting the bulk of our people. And I have had a couple of questions of folks asking me why, as a city, we do not have a recycle bin somewhere that the citizens who have extra recycling, they can put it somewhere. Because some folks, we bought something that was really huge, and it took me 30 minutes to cut the box down to fit into the trash can, which was fine, but I didn't want to have it sitting on the side of my house till they picked it up the second Tuesday at the end of the month. You know what I mean? So if I had a place to go take it, I would have just thrown it in the car and driven it. And then the city would get the revenue because it's recycled. So I don't know where we would put it in our city. I mean, I really don't, but I thought that was a great idea, anyway, to make a little extra money. And like Joanne talking about the businesses, you know, if they had a place to recycle, and because, gosh, think of how many boxes you get. And that's it, that's my list. And I agree with everyone about not
We
starting a
got
new
some
department.
information coming here.
Oh, already?
Javier just entered
Boy,
the
that's
chair.
instant. Wonderful, Javier, thank you.
Mayor, Councilmember, Vice Mayor Campbell, I have a quick question. You mentioned something about our bulk pickup service.
Yes.
And we know that our citizens are really used to that service, and certainly it's not something that we necessarily want to challenge. But you did mention keeping it in the contract or adding it to the contract. That is a service that we provide in-house.
Oh, well, then whatever we do, we need to keep it up. I didn't realize we did it in-house, and I apologize, but that thing is so critical to keep our city looking so wonderful.
Then that's our closer, when people are talking to us.
Yes.
We say, well, we can understand where you want to come, but let me tell you, another addition that you'll have to pay for, addition and more, is this special one that we do. Not all cities do it.
Right.
Sherry?
I remember a
Mayor?
while back. Oh,
Oops. Oh, you got it, Bill. Thank you. I've heard you. You're on, Bill.
Two things. One is if I can ask everyone to talk into their mics, that would be very helpful on my end.
You can't
sec-
hear it?
I'm having a hard time. I can tell who's close to the mic and who's not.
All right. I'll be watching them, all right? Go ahead, Bill.
So secondarily to that is, did the study that we did look at exporting that that service to a private provider? Currently, the bulk trash is done with city employees, city equipment, et cetera. Do we look at outsourcing that as part of that contract and see how that pencils out?
Yes, we had the consultant look at taking that service outside, and in their opinion, there would be no contractor that would meet the level of service that our in-house staff are currently providing. They didn't recommend we add that, but if that's something you guys would like us to look at, we could certainly add it to the request for proposals.
No, from my perspective, since I asked the question, I am beyond thrilled with the level of service that we get internally. But I think if they've already looked at it, then we have done our appropriate due diligence and at least looking at it. I don't think I want to try to save $500 for a year and get a lesser level of service, or at least the lesser passion that our sanitation folks bring to their job and the care that they bring, which is at such a high level. I don't think you can put a price on that. But I just wanted to see if we had actually made the request, if the professional made the analysis and said it's really a break-even thing. I'm fine with not taking that any farther. I don't know how anyone else feels, but I think we're getting probably more. If the cost is a break-even, I think we're probably getting a higher level of service that you cannot cost out.
All right, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Any more? Yes, Sherry?
and I'm talking into my microphone. Several years ago, we had a program with the green waste to recycle the green waste and keep that out of the landfill. Did we make money on that? Is that something we'd look to continue with a new contract, or was that not a good thing? I don't remember. I remember we tried it to keep green waste out of the landfill.
Certainly something we can look at. Some cities do offer a green waste program with varying results. Sometimes they pencil out and sometimes they don't.
I know we did it for a while as a test, and then it just kind of went away, so I didn't know if that worked or that did not pencil out. Must not have worked too well.
The thing you want to be careful of is if you contract your yard out and the contractor decides to
Dump their stuff?
put the stuff out in front, because that makes it more valuable to them as far as profit and loss. So I know that there have been occasions that I've seen that done. So that's my own. I'm just full of nice things saying tonight, aren't I? I know you're just all looking at me like a negative Lord here tonight, but those are things that came to the forefront years ago.
I just remembered it a while ago, and it just went away, so I wasn't sure what happened to it.
Yeah. Any other? All right, that was great. Thank you. Got lots of inquiries on this, so we'll look forward to the information.
You're welcome. Could I recap real quick? So we'll do some additional research on the furlough program and bring some possible changes to you. We'll continue with the request for proposal. We hope to have that on the street by the end of March, looking for the best value for our residents for that contained service. How about the household hazardous waste? Were you guys interested in looking at increasing the frequency or just maintaining the twice a year through the multi-city agreement? I didn't
Thought of that one.
quite get.
Yeah, I guess it's a costing
cost,
factor.
how
I think
much?
that's probably, yes.
How much would it cost, Joe?
Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I like the two. The only feedback I'd give is that it seemed like I know the lines were really long, so I don't know how we mitigate that. That's the only complaint I've ever gotten, is that it's a really good thing because people go and the lines are really long and it takes a little while to get through it. And I don't know if that looks like just adding a couple hours or if that looks like adding a whole new thing, but it also would depend on cost as well.
Well, I thought at the beginning we did it ourselves. Okay, so that's a kind of good gauge to know, how many would be coming from our Goodyear taxpayers and Avondale. So would that be of interest to you, as that they're looking into this?
Yeah. Look at the numbers and
All right.
just see if it's worth it.
All right, Joanne?
And I do recall that we also, it was like we had hazardous waste, and then we had electronic waste, and then we had hazardous waste. I mean, I thought there was some kind of, breaking it up. But obviously, the 2 times a year, that hazardous waste program has been huge. And so, I mean, I think it's great that we're collaborating with the other cities. And so I would be interested in hearing what's the thought of the 2 cities adding in another time for hazardous waste, or, enhancing that and letting us know, because, it sure seems like it's really good.
Joe?
Just to follow up on what Sherry had mentioned, if you can find any of the data on the green waste that we did before and the results, I have a tendency to believe it probably didn't pencil out, but it would be nice if you could see if you could find some of the old data, just what the results were.
Sure will. And we do break down the HHW events, so we know how many cars were served by were Goodyear residents versus the other cities. And so we split the cost accordingly. We currently have about 70,000, our budget has 70,000 a year that we spend on those events. We are the bulk of those people. Just so you know, Goodyear residents do make up the majority of those events, and we have changed them so they're for household hazardous waste like your paints, as well as electronics, tires. It's a place for them to come and just get rid of everything that can't go in the garbage can. So we can look with our partners and see if they want to add another event, and we'll come back with that as well.
All set? Thank you very
Mayor.
much. All right, we're going to,
That Bill's on.
oh, Bill, you have something else?
Yeah, just to follow up on Councilmember Pizzillo, I this past year heard from several people who did not want to put in the bulk trash their green waste, and we're looking for a drop-off location, something that they could put that in. So I think as we're talking about the green waste program, as far as picking it up and as a separate program, if there's not an old-fashioned way of, and I know a dumpster or something like that, or a place that we can secure that those that are really interested in not sending that to the landfill, but really want it sent to some sort of a system. I'm not a garbage expert. I don't know, and maybe that question is answered in a yellow paper in the manager's report or something like that. But does a low or no cost option exist for those residents that really are very concerned about that kind of waste going into the landfill? My immediate response was, geez, we can really make this very complicated. But if we're talking about green waste, I don't recall that, and I've obviously lived in the city for 17 years. I don't recall the green program. So maybe there's just a little bit of information that flows through that. And as far as the hazardous waste is concerned, I think I love the program. I think that 2 times a year is probably enough. And maybe it becomes time to, if we're worried about the numbers of people, maybe it is a matter of just increasing the hours because they're very labor intensive and equipment intensive. So I think making it go for an hour longer or 2 hours longer as opposed to doing an entire third day might be, I wonder if that's not a better solution. So I'm not sure that I heard that in the conversation, but it sounds like Barb's got a pretty good handle on summarizing everything that we're talking about.
Thank you, Bill. Any comments on that? Yeah. All right. Molly?
I was just thinking about the green waste. Does the city or Parks and Rec do compost piles?
Mulch?
A mulch or something? And I mean, if we allowed all of the city to bring their green waste, and I don't want them to start a program, it's just a thought. If they had a place, they'd dump it. But then you don't know what they're going to put in that dump. What we think is green waste may not be their green waste. And that alone is a problem. But a lot of us do not have grass, and so maybe that's why the green waste didn't work too well.
Thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor Campbell, if I may, the Parks and Recreation Department we do have a green waste program for our trimmings and green waste from parks and facilities. It's very labor intensive. We basically place all the trimmings. They have to be chopped, grinded down, and then we receive reduced tipping fees for providing the green waste material.
Well, then
So it's about half the cost to us.
We wouldn't want us to have the whole city come to you then if you're doing your own.
That would be an entire new operation.
Yeah, we don't
for
want to do that because it costs too much money.
Just stick with us a little bit
Yeah.
longer. We can get a lot of people hired.
That would be a full-time
Thanks, Nathan.
operation.
Programs.
Thanks,
Just hold
Nathan.
on. We'll bring them on. Okay, any other questions? It was great discussion, Council, and all your suggestions, so I really appreciate it. Let's go on to 3.3. Council will receive an overview of the draft FY 2021 City Strategic Plan Guiding Principles and Goals as requested during the December.
Mayor, what about 3.2?
I'm sorry, what?
We still have 3.2 to do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry about that. All right, so we're at 3.2, is that what you're saying? Sorry about that. I apologize. And how could I forget the mascot and the stadium? I don't know, guys. Sorry about that. Council will receive information, provide feedback with regards to commendations, commemorations. Oh, do I need a 5? Oh, thank you, dear. All right. I'm sorry. We're going to give a 5-minute break. These are my medications that we got from the doctor today, and I need to go in and take them. So take 5 minutes, okay?
I'm in.
Patients, I know that's very unusual, but I think the whole city hall has been stricken with this. So, Bill, are you there? Bill?
Yes, ma'am, I'm still here.
Thank you for holding on. So that I'm doing it right, we are now on the mascot. So we're going to, on 3.2, receive information and provide feedback with regard to the All right. The celebration of the Goodyear Ballpark 10-year milestones, the status of Goodyear Ballpark mascot, and proposed community resource program, i.e. the baseball cards. So Bruce Kessman, Ballpark General Manager, will be presenting.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and I'd also like to introduce Nathan Torres, Parks and Rec Director, who will be joining me out of the bullpen tonight. As you stated, we have 3 items that we'll be following up on tonight. The status of the ballpark mascot, which is retired after nearly 7 years of service at the ballpark. The community resource program, which are the baseball cards that council asked staff to provide some feedback on developing a similar program, and also giving an update on the commemoration celebration of the Goodyear Ballpark's 10-year milestones. as I'm sure you're all aware, that Zizzy did retire officially back in July of 2017 after about 7 years of service with the Goodyear Ballpark. And during those 7 years, right, we really understood that the mascot became a very valuable marketing tool for us. Heading out to school appearances and hundreds of school appearances, community appearances, and really became like a branding piece of the ballpark where it really helped kind of create that ballpark identity. And especially outside of spring training, this is really important for us, as during spring training we have 2 major league teams that help with our branding, but outside of that, the mascot was really something that we were able to rely on to help make that connection with our community to the ballpark. And of course, during spring training games, Zizzy entertained hundreds of thousands of fans throughout the years, participating in between inning promotions, taking pictures with the kids, and just being around during those games. Leading into FY19, staff did submit a supplemental to replace and develop and create a new ballpark mascot. And should council wish to proceed with the development of ballpark mascot, we'd start the process with seeking a new company to design and fabricate a new costume. We would engage both of the teams as they have full-time mascots on their staff, which would be able to provide valuable input to us as far as the functionality and even with some of like the looks of what a good mascot could be for us. We would also look for council participation and really understand what council may want to see, in this new mascot, as well as go out to the public and get the public participation in like an open house type forum where, again, they can kind of tell us, is it more of a fictitious creature, kind of something like the Philly Fanatic, or is it something like a Howler or a Baxter, which is a physical animal, and something that can be related to the Arizona area. And then in addition to creating some feedback with the public, once we design and get to a conceptual stage and we're ready to roll out a new mascot, then we can engage the general public and create a campaign about naming the mascot, which would really kind of tie into that 10-year celebration. So as we're getting ready for our 10-year milestones, this would be a great time to help create some of that energy around that season. And then the time frame that we'd be looking at to produce this is that we would start right in July, knowing that we'd want a deliverable hopefully sometime in July, mid to late July at the very latest. So backing up, once we select that company that would be able to design and fabricate, that we kind of back up our time frames to make sure that we lay out benchmarks and milestones so that we make sure that we hit that to stay on pace to have our new mascot in time for the 2019 season. And the estimated cost that we have right now is about $30,000 to develop and design a new mascot, which would include the mascot in its entirety, the entire costume, plus we would get extra pieces. So if there's shoes, extra hands, or other accessories that would be necessary, we'd also get the necessary items that would be needed to properly take care of the costume as well. Most of the costumes do need to be hung up and stored properly so you don't get further damage when not in use, and then also for some of the open house and the public feedback forums that we'd be hosting, that the funds would also be covered in that. And also just like to make note that in FY18 that we did receive a supplemental to replace the current mascots. However, since Zizzy's retirement, those funds will not be expended in this current fiscal year. In the amount of $12,000 was what the supplemental. Correct. And at this time, I'd just like to open up for any council comments or feedback.
Sherry, I really didn't know we were actually going to retire Zizzy. I might be part of the Keep Zizzy group here at $12,000 as opposed to $30,000. I do know that people in this, not just our community, but overall, when they try to redo Sparky a little bit, that didn't go over well. So I know people get attached to what they see and what they like. So if we're going to roll this out to the public, I mean, I know we want to have a concept about the costume, but I didn't know we were going to retire Zizzy unless you're going to start Instagramming pictures of Zizzy by the pool, with a margarita or something. I just don't see spending to get a whole new, is there a reason we have to get a new one? I mean, Zizzy's a little weird looking, I admit, but I think it grows on you. For another 15,000, I'm good.
There is some background to it, please.
Mayor, Councilmember Lortano, I'd be happy to respond to that. All mascots run their course. Mascots, there's many different opinions. Some love mascots, others don't care for mascots as much. You can come up with any opinion about pretty much any mascot that's out there. I will tell you that, the teams didn't care for Zizzy as much. And I think they've made those concerns known to us. However, that is quite different than what we heard from the public with regards to Zizzy. In fact, it's the opposite in terms of our surveys that we received at the ballpark, positive, and Zizzy, I guess it goes to say Zizzy was requested to be at schools and different events. So, but having said that, all mascots run their course, and I think it was time to. Zizzy was very limited in terms of mobility, and it was done in terms of mascots. It was done on a shoestring budget. I think we developed Zizzy for $7,000. That included design and Zizzy's costume. So. Again, understanding team concerns and the standpoint that we were already going to replace Zizzy for $12,000, that we had received that supplemental for this current fiscal year, that we thought it was a good time to maybe just pause and recheck and start from scratch and give council that input.
That makes sense. Maybe we can have an online poll of where Zizzy should go for his retirement then.
We have it in a museum or something, the costume behind glass.
Sure.
Our first one. Excuse me, Joe?
Yeah, I noticed the teams are kicking in for the giveaways. Since a lot of this is being driven because they had some issues with Zizzy, are they kicking in any money for this mascot?
Mayor, Councilmember Pizzillo, we have engaged the teams and started to solicit, I guess, some interest from their sides. Neither team has committed any funding at this time, but those discussions will continue to take place.
Any other comments? Yes, Molly?
Okay, so did I understand your process is that someone else will design and figure out what kind of mascot we want and then do the costumes, or? I mean, that's, and then my second question is, does every Cactus League team have their own mascot? And, sorry, my third question, this will be easy for you, Bruce. Does every stadium have their own mascot, or are we the only one? Because I have gone to many stadiums, and I've not seen another stadium mascot. So are we doing it as the only one?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Campbell, answer the third one first. Yes, we are the only Cactus League facility that has a mascot. And really, for us, we've been able to find a way to really increase our marketing and create that community awareness towards spring training, the ballpark, and then also other activities that happen at the ballpark. I would venture to guess that if other cities catch on to this, that might be a trend that may start here in the near future.
Well, not if we've been doing it 7 years and no one's picked it up. I think they would have picked it up by now. So the second question is, does every Cactus team has their own mascot? Do we know? I think so, Nathan.
All the teams have their own mascot that usually they bring down for the Cactus,
right. Okay.
For spring training at interval or different times, but not every stadium, again, does not have a mascot. So the teams supply the mascots.
Okay.
So
I want to hear what Bill has to say.
Joanne? I didn't hear. I called Joanne. Just speak up. Just speak up. I called a name.
All right. Thank you. So, first of all, this came about because the Indians had come to me and said, hey, can you talk about retiring Zizzy? That's how this started months ago, and that's why we stopped it during the budget time. I didn't kill Zizzy. I brought it because they were complaining about it, and I said, we need to talk about this. And so, Anyway, I just brought it, and that's why, it was halted. And Brian had sent out information, background about it and everything. We all received that. But I see things two ways. Thank you, Bruce, for saying how much, the schools asked for him, and, how Zizzy's been engaged in our city. I think that's important. Yes, I get the money, and it makes me cringe about that. I'm glad we already have the $12,000 that we were going to use for a brand new outfit for Zizzy anyway. It would be great if the teams would come and meet us to fill in the rest of that 30. The other thing that I think, though, is as this rolls into the whole 10-year celebration, I think this is a perfect way to work with our citizens and get them excited about the 10 years. And that, I'll go back to my silly big dog in our store, Thor. All of our customers were so excited to pick the name for that dog. And, and that's how I can see our citizens being excited on what, to your question, Wally, is somebody else going to be coming up with our new Zizzy mascot? Or is it our citizens? That I think our citizens should have that opportunity of saying, oh, it should be a bobcat, or it should be a, whatever is Goodyear's, cool, thing. I think the citizens would have fun, even if it was the elementary school kids, of saying, what should be our next mascot? I just think that's a great way to engage our community. So,
Anybody other have a comment? Brandon?
Yeah, I didn't realize we had already retired Zizzy either, and I wasn't for necessarily getting rid of him, but so we're not going to have a mascot this go around this season. It sounds like
Correct.
And then with the if we're going to do a new one, which I'm okay doing, then yeah, obviously I think you're going to do public participation. It says right here, so it needs to be something identity of Goodyear, or whatever that looks like. So I don't know, something to do with cotton, or with the military attire, the military with the Blue Angels, our blimp.
Oh, excuse me, you want to say Thunderbirds. Luke is
Thunderbirds,
yes.
sorry, Thunderbirds. No, the Navy was a naval base. So okay, but either way, so yeah, if we're gonna do it, it'd be something neat that says we're Goodyear, and then we can use it also as a marketing tool for the city as well. So, but I'd be interested to see what the public participation is.
Any other comments?
Mayor,
Yes, Bill.
I thought I heard my name mentioned earlier. So I'm with Joanne on the comments about it's time to replace Zizzy and move on to something else. And I know this probably makes everybody absolutely insane, but I think it's actually really cool that we are the only ones with a mascot. The cheap uncle wants to spend a little bit of money to have something like that. We have spent the last 10 years, or however long we've had the ballpark, apologizing for having it in our community. And I think a number of years ago, the mayor made a very good point when she said, look, we own this. We need to embrace it. We need to love it. We need to make it part of our community. So we center a lot of our events around activities at the ballpark, and the people, when they come to those, I'm thinking of the 4th of July and the Christmas celebration and the Fall Festival, and when we did the viewing parties and the movies. I mean, it has served our purpose as another gathering place. So to have a Goodyear-only mascot that isn't representative of the two baseball teams, but is really representative of our ballpark, is actually kind of exciting. I am holding out hope. Maybe it's a pipe dream that the teams will contribute to that mascot because it is there to help fill the seats, and they directly benefit from that. So I don't think, I don't think it's out of line to go a third, and a third in the cost of that. But obviously, the ball teams are going to do what the ball teams are going to do. and the mascot is ours that we get to use at any other time. But I think that Zizzy has served his or her purpose, and it's time to get something that is unique to us as a community, and maybe that is a character as opposed to a state animal, because I think when we look around, most of the state animals are already taken between the rattlesnake and the bobcat and the lumberjack and all the rest of them. But people much more creative than me can figure that out, and I love the idea that we're going to have the community involved in identifying what that is. And I think we've got once again another opportunity to be unique and not be like everyone else. And I'm fully embracing the idea that, hey, we're paying for this thing. We get to use it more, our facility more than anyone else gets to in the valley, and let's maximize that.
Thank you, Bill. Joe?
Since Izzy itself, I guess, and again, to get back to the cost, the ball teams kind of drove a lot of the replacement, I guess is why I'd heard for the reason. Being that, I'm hoping that you'll be able to convince them to at least kick into that. Or the other option is which I think we should do anyway, is public. We should make it one of those public contests. Let the public decide if we're going to foot this entire cost. Let the public decide what they want, and get the buy-in from the public. That's the way I look at these two pieces.
Maybe we ought to give them some choices, though.
Well, that's what I mean, though.
Yeah, choices.
It would be nice probably to give them some options, but it would be nice to have the public help us pick what this is going to be.
In my view, and I'm going to speak up before somebody because this is going on, but I would think that we should have choices, pictures, diagrams, something to show them. Otherwise, we're opening up a huge time frame in which people would come together on
I don't mind a preview, of something.
Mayor, Councilmember Pizzillo, if I may, you're spot on in terms of public process, public input, much like the public process that goes into what we're doing now in master planning a park. We're bringing the public together. They're reacting. They're heavily engaged in that process to end result. This is no different. It's some very similar public process.
But you show them pictures and you show them inspiration.
Inspirational,
so
correct.
Give them a background in which order to do this. All right, we have two more people here. We're going to go to Sherry.
Okay, in all seriousness, because obviously Zizzy was loved by the kids, do we still have the costume?
Yes.
Can we have a retirement party or a good luck Zizzy party as part of the public kickoff for the new mascot, Send Zizzy off with a couple Hawaiian lays around its neck.
Put the
and a
costume
Hawaiian
behind
shirt.
glass and hang it, and name of the date, and so everybody will know
Well,
historically.
then people, it's transitional.
Pass the bat.
Yeah, it's the handoff. Because if people love a mascot and it just goes away, that's what happened to ASU. They got nailed when they changed Sparky. So if we have the handoff and we kind of bring it out to a goodbye, and then you're all saying goodbye, and they know why it's retiring, then it's easier to say, oh, well, now who's going to be the replacement?
So,
Yes,
Mayor,
Brianna.
yeah, to your point about like a contest or something like that for marketing purposes, I remember when the Diamondbacks first came here, and there was a big thing about what was the mascot going to be, who's going to name it. I think someone won like a prize. So I don't know if we can do opening day tickets as the prize or whatever it is to the ballpark, however we want to do it. Season for that year, I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to give
Make a
Joe
big
this,
deal of
and
it
then
if
we're
we
going to
can.
wrap this conversation up. Joe?
I'm wrapped up with this. I was going to go on to the baseball cards, if that's okay.
Okay, all right, go.
I like that idea. I really do. It's a way of getting information out at the ballpark to where people can go to get support and help. And I think it's a great idea, and I think the cost is well worth it to get that information out to our general public for those that need help. So I'm 100% behind. I do the math like the athletes do, 110%, but I know 110% can't happen. But the athletes always say it. But anyway, I'm there with this program. I believe in it 100%.
Sherry, do you have anything to say since that was your idea?
I'll let Bruce and then I'll follow up. I think
Okay.
Steve's got the presentation.
I'll go ahead and jump right in here to the presentation. And These are the baseball cards. I do have a set here if you need to see them in person. We did reach out to the Diamondbacks to try to get some more information regarding this program and to see, how they developed it, what their distribution methods were, quantities that they're distributing throughout the community. However, this was a little bit of an older program, and unfortunately, the people that ran this program are no longer with the organization.
Of course.
However, we did start our process and trying to mimic and develop a very similar program. So we reached out to the Indians and Reds to see what their involvement would be on putting one of their players on the front of the cards. Both of the teams, with the timing that we're currently in, they asked us to wait till about early summer to start the further conversations, wait to get through spring training, their opening day at their home ballparks, and then we'll start to further engage the conversation. One of the things that did come out in those conversations is that this may have to go to Major League Baseball and get approval by the Players Association to use the likenesses of players on the front of the cards. We don't know what that means or what the process is, but those would be some of the items that we'll be further having discussion with once we engage in those conversations.
I can give you a little background because it was my committee that did these.
Okay.
And it was Zendejas, because this is old. This is under Jerry Colangelo.
Okay.
And we had the City of Phoenix Task Force, Domestic Violence Task Force. And it was a whole event that we actually did. It was called Safe at Home, playing on domestic violence awareness for home plate, Safe at Home. And this was one of the components. And then they selected, it did go up to their ownership, did select the player. So it was Colangelo that basically selected the player, and we did a big thing with that player and everything, and he was like the spokesman for the cause. So I understand it's got to go up and go over, but I'm glad they're really doing it because for those that didn't hear, these act like shoe cards when they're around the house with the domestic violence information on the back. And we did like 6 poses, and they were in Spanish and English, that if kids have these around, if there's an abuser, these are non-threatening, and it has the information out to where to call the shelter hotline, where to get a shelter bed, domestic violence services and information. And like this had the City of Phoenix Advocacy Center. We'd obviously use our advocacy center. And the purpose is you can either put in your shoe, like you should put a shoe card, but Maricopa County does these little shoe card things. And the thing about those is those say domestic violence. I mean, if you see around the house, that's going to get someone assaulted possibly. When you see something like this around the house, the purpose was they're harmless. Someone's going to see them. They're going to say, oh, we got them at the ball game or whatever. And I still have a whole bunch of them. I know they came in sheets, so I know they weren't expensive. But if you need to use my council money, yeah, that's fine.
Here's mine too.
Joe?
Is there, again, I understand probably all the hoops you got to do to go through Major League Baseball, but if for some reason the timing or what they have to go through, is there anything that we can do that's not as threatening, that can be the same likeness, maybe not a ball player? I don't know who you put on there, maybe the mascot, I don't know, that can be distributed at our game so that the same information gets out there? Because to me, I think it's a very worthwhile program. And I think there's value in getting it out there if you can find out something that's not as threatening, that maybe not be a baseball player, but something else to put on there that doesn't, right on the front of it says call for X, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something that has either a mascot or some type of, something that we can get without copyright infringement that we can put on there to get that information out. I just throw that out as an idea because I hate to see that go to waste from a timing standpoint because of all the hoops that you got to go through to get. So just give it some thought, because I think there is value in letting people know what those resources are, because it's one of those things, unfortunately, it's an ugly thing that we're kind of, have here in the society, and anything we can do, in my opinion, I'm sure the others in there as well, is anything we can do to help these people, I think is a great thing.
Yes, Joanne?
Just as an idea too, there's probably specific ball players that really are behind, trying to help advocates for domestic violence, and not to take the light away from domestic violence, but even if it's to the opioid issues that are going on, and Ohio being one of the tough states that's going through that. I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, it was a great idea, and I would love for it to get that information out in a I don't want to say a sly way, but in a way, it's helping people, see it, that other people aren't recognizing that the information's there. So I think that's really a cool way. And to Joe's point, if it's taken too long to get through with the teams coming up with something of our own, it's a good idea.
And I know Phoenix Fire at that time, I think it was Phoenix Fire, did some too for either drowning prevention. They had pictures of their trucks and, just, they did something very similar
So it
too.
grows, the campaign grows.
Could
It
even
was a
be
different campaign, but it was examples we used. It was either Phoenix, I think it was Phoenix Fire did it with trucks, drowning
the
prevention,
ballpark
call
itself,
911.
you
So
know?
there's different areas that you can use.
All right, we about done with this discussion?
I was just
Molly?
going to remind everyone, since New Life Center is located in Goodyear, it's just a perfect fit.
Sure.
And we need to get the message out, and however we could do it, it's just, it's a service to the residents and anyone that needs it.
You got the floor, go ahead.
And actually, I think what I'd like to try to do is get a little bit more concrete and further direction. Because I'm hearing that, there's a couple of social services that may be very valuable to promote on the back. Is it council's, direction to do multiple agencies? Do we want to stick with just one? Do we want to produce multiple cards? We've actually met with and spoke with Goodyear PD and try to get an idea of what resources that they refer citizens to. And they really kind of fall within, a few categories, which are the victims' rights, domestic violence, mental health, the opioid drug addiction, homelessness. And so if there's any other categories that maybe that we want to try to promote, or if we want to stick to one of these categories, we can work with Goodyear PD and provide council a list of those resources that are available within those categories.
Yes, Brandon.
To that, I was thinking, if we could do all of them, it depends on the price, or we do one a year, just do one theme a year, and we focus on that, and we hit it hard with the resources for that, and then next year we change it up. The next year we hit things that we see in our community. So that's what I think.
Any other comments?
Yeah, and like I said, to your point, it doesn't have to be a baseball player, it could be something else.
So sounds like I'm hearing that you don't want the idea to be lost because we can't get a baseball face on there. Is that correct? Okay, so yes.
Absolutely. But going back to if we can get the baseball for domestic violence, let's still look at doing one of our own for one of these other categories, because I think that's just it's a great theme to have, multiple ones. I appreciate that.
Although I just have a suggestion. So in my view, we take the two top subjects in our city and we concentrate on those to make them, we're really diving into the problem. I don't want to be flippant enough to say, well, next year we're going to take the opioids off because now we've got to do something we're going to take off, the brutality, because those two subjects are probably the top subjects that are going on in the cities. The opioids and domestic violence.
Mayor, if I may, I think if we're looking at the top two, probably the best thing would be for us on our staff to engage police to see what are their top referrals or what they're seeing in the community in terms of need, and then bringing back those recommendations to council.
Yeah, great idea.
And then we actually were exploring alternatives if the teams are unable to put a player on the card. That the first thing that came to mind was the mascot. Now, we were a little early based on supplemental approval, but we were thinking along what are those alternatives.
But please try with our teams to see, because it's going to be at our ballpark, and it's great for them as well.
Yes, and both of our teams have expressed interest. They just wanted a little bit more time to get a little bit more direction on what this program was going to be so that they had the information that they needed to gain the proper approvals.
Okay, and all they know is we just want their picture, and then there'll be a referral number. That's it. We're not asking anything else. Real simple.
Okay, are we done with the conversation here? Do you have the direction?
Yes.
Any questions for us? All right, thank you very much for that. It certainly was a stimulating conversation. So, Roy, before I get into this, do we
Well,
have
actually,
to start?
We have one last,
I'm
wanted to
sorry,
provide
I
the
keep doing that too.
the
That's
brief
second time.
update on the combined 10-year celebration commemoration. As we are entering now the 2018 season, this will be Goodyear Ballparks and the Indians' 10th season of spring training at Goodyear. However, it's only going to be the Reds' 9th season. So as we started our discussions about how do we get the 10-year celebration, we wanted to make sure that both teams were included, and collectively between ballpark staff, the Indians, and the Reds, that we decided the 2019 season would be the best to have a combined celebration. So Goodyear Ballpark and Indians would be celebrating the 10th anniversaries and the Reds' 10th season. Hence, we can come up with a combined 10-year celebration. And along with that, that we would be developing a 10-year logo, very similar to what we did for the 5-year celebration, produce commemorative gifts and fan giveaways. Really want to celebrate those long season ticket holders that have been with us since day one, and some of our community business leaders that have supported us for that length of time as well. We're estimating these costs to be approximately $20,000 to produce these items, and both the Indians and the Reds have committed $5,000 each, so our net would be $10,000. And staff did put forth a supplemental for consideration in the FY19 budget process.
You have nodding heads here.
Perfect. And don't forget that in less than 2 weeks that we do start spring training, February 23rd, opening day. We have a lot of our great programs coming back with the child prize ticketing, our military offers, Ohio Days for the berm. We have 2 great giveaways this year with Mr. Red Legs in a F-35. Also has a Luke tail number. So that's very exciting for us. Trevor Bauer minifigurine, which is getting a lot of press right now back up in Cleveland. A couple fireworks nights, and we have 7 night games this year. We're looking forward to just an absolute great season. All of our information is on the website, GoodyearBP.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the great presentation. We're pleased about that. Rorik, I'm going to talk to you. We have Bill on the line. It's now 5:49. Rorik, so can I go ahead and continue this last one because we've got Bill on the line?
Absolutely, Mayor. The
All
other
right.
meeting is noticed to immediately follow
So-
this meeting, so you
Yeah,
can
okay,
fine.
so we're going to go on with this work session, and we're going to 3.3. I'm assuming, Bill, you're on there?
Yes, ma'am, and
All right.
before Pam starts, I'd just like to make some comments since
All right, I'm going to call on you in just a moment. Let me just say the council will receive an overview of the draft of the FY 2021 City Strategic Plan Guiding Principles and Goals as requested during the December 11, 2017 work session. Following the review, staff recommends the council establish a consensus regarding any final changes to the plan prior to the potential adoption during an upcoming regular meeting. And Pam Weir, our assistant to the city manager, will be presenting. Pam?
Mayor,
Yes?
can I sorry, if it's possible, I'd just like to say a couple of things before we get started because of the time difference and the time delay. Before Pam gets started, I had a couple of things that I wanted to let all my fellow council members know. I normally wouldn't do this if I was sitting in the room, but I'm asking for a little leeway.
I'm just going to look at the council and see some nodding heads, and so you have the floor, Bill.
Okay, just very, very briefly, after our last work session, I sent some information to Pam and Dan on this topic. I know the last time we met, we had a lot of discussion about it, and I in that event, tended to really drive that discussion. I wanted to let everybody know that I am very happy with the end result as the staff have really created and redefined the focus areas and then their further creation of the guiding principles that help define them. They've really put forward the complete package with those changes, and I hope everyone sees that and tends to agree with that. The only other thing is Pam will go through the presentation, I presume. We're going to hit the point where there's proposed goals later in the slide presentation. Those are the ones that are in there are mine. And just to give you a little background, as you see them, where did these come from? Like I said, they were mine. They came from the previous plan and are items that we've either invested a lot of time and or money in, and I believe that we should acknowledge them and ensure that they're captured and completed. So when you see where did those come from, they were all goals from the previous plan, and then you can decide whether you agree with me or not. One item that you will see toward the end is that I suggested some goals related to transportation, since this is part of a focus area and included in guiding principles. And it is an area that we should be looking at. I have, believe it or not, actually nothing specific that I'm looking for, simply because I'm not the transportation expert. And if the rest of the council agrees later on in the presentation, my intent in suggesting a transportation goal or goals was to see what the professionals on our staff had to recommend. So just to give everybody a little bit of background on where I came from and how I looked at this, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak before Pam did.
Thank you, Bill. All right, Pam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. It's a treat to be in front of you again on this labor of love. We've been working together for quite some time to reestablish our strategic plan here for the fiscal year 2021. So in the interest of time and sort of getting to the meat of the conversation, I'm not doing the full rehash of the background at this presentation. Instead, we'll go ahead and jump right into the performance management context that the strategic plan sits in, and then we'll dive right into those proposed guiding principles and goals, because it is staff's understanding that we have clear direction now on our purpose statement, our focus area definitions. I do plan to pause as we go so we can kind of check off each section.
All right. Let me know.
So you have been seeing this graphic more and more in front of you. This is just to position the strategic plan and the overall activities that the city is involved with on an annual or in some cases biennial cycle. This is just important to understand in the sense that right now we're operating with a strategic plan that did, at least on paper, expire at the conclusion of the previous fiscal year. And we have many activities throughout the organization that are intended to align with council's highest priorities. And so without establishing that new direction for the next few years, we're operating a little bit on kind of the flavor of the day type projects, and creating a new strategic plan will help us to really focus our priorities and understand, where should we be focusing our resources as we get further into the budget process. So diving right into the proposed plan, I will walk through, again, I'll kind of go quickly, feel free to stop me if you need to, the changes that have been made up till this point, and then we'll get into the goals and guiding principles. So there were some key changes that were requested by council over a series of work sessions in our new strategic plan document. The first was that it be more public friendly, so get rid of a lot of the technical jargon and make it something that our citizens can relate to and connect with. That we go ahead and remove actions and activity updates from the body of the plan, that the plan truly serve as a plan, and that reporting updates happen under a separate cover, so that we have additional communication tools that can keep you informed on our progress, but that the plan stay sort of a consistent document on an annual cycle. We added a purpose statement to the front of the plan that really connects the city's vision to the strategic plan itself. And I will go into more detail, but we've updated the focus area definitions as well. We added guiding principles to each focus area, and then we established 14 fresh goals for the organization in our strategic planning retreat last October. And as Councilmember Stitt mentioned, we did receive some additional feedback for your consideration here tonight. That has not yet had a chance to kind of go through that vetting process with staff and the rest of council. The other thing I will emphasize on a timing basis is just that this is a breathing document with an annual update cycle. And so just because something may not make it in one iteration of the plan doesn't mean that the next cycle doesn't start right back up again. So if there's something or an idea shared here tonight that maybe isn't fully fleshed out, there's no reason why staff can't work on that over the next few months and in preparation for the next retreat, come prepared with more information. So briefly, just as a reminder, our purpose statement for the strategic plan: with unified leadership, a talented workforce, and an involved citizenry, Goodyear is on the leading edge of tremendous growth and quality development opportunities. By eliminating all barriers and staying flexible, we will take calculated risks to maximize the community's potential. We deliver services to meet the needs of our city so that Goodyear continues to be a thriving, sustainable community for all. We then worked on our focus area definitions quite a bit, and at the last work session, you asked for some additions to be made. Rather than read out each statement for you, I trust you all can review that. I'll just go ahead and highlight that the changes requested at the last work session were incorporated into each definition. So in fiscal resource management, we heard you that you wanted to clearly define the resources part of that as including fiscal, human, and physical resources so that all three of those are explicitly stated. And then we also added language back that was requested regarding city business practices and customer service expectations. In economic vitality, we added a clear articulation that transportation and infrastructure are part of our economic development strategy, and that we do have a focus on quality retail and entertainment opportunities for our community. In sense of community, we added a stronger emphasis on the community engagement and communication piece. And we included this new sense of pride that was very important to council as we went through our process. And then finally, in quality of life, we added specific reference to arts and promoting health and wellness, that those are important components of our well-rounded community. So I'd love to dive right into the guiding principles, but is there any final comment that I should know about as it relates to the focus areas or purpose?
Any comments on that?
Excellent, thank you very much. So the guiding principles are a new addition to the plan and were requested at the last council work session. Council really was looking for a bridge between these broader focus area definitions and the specific goals in the annual plan. And that would help provide greater clarity on not just what the city does, but also how we operate and general rules about how we do our work. So the intent is that these guiding principles as drafted, that they're timeless, that these are things that can be incorporated pretty much as long lasting as the focus areas themselves, and that they do cut across all departments. While they somewhat fit into these different focus areas, they really talk about how we operate kind of regardless of what we're doing. So for the ease of the presentation, because there are some explanations about each one of these guiding principles, I simply included the title of each guiding principle for your review and consideration and consensus. I will say that I did receive here and there just a couple bits of feedback around, like for example, there was one guiding principle where we stated city employees before our residents, and the comment was sort of make sure the residents come first in the guiding principles. Those were very well taken, and those will be incorporated in the final document. But if it's all right with you, we won't get bogged down by some of that wordsmithing, and we'll make sure our communications team and so on gets sort of the final language just right before final publication.
Tonight, whatever sentence that is one of them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, that was it. So.
Do you want questions right now? You got a little bit more before.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm happy to, I've listed 2 focus areas at a time on both slides, and I'd really like feedback as a whole on the guiding principles, consensus that you agree with the principles as written, or if you really feel like there's a missing component that we can take back and wordsmith on your behalf to incorporate in the final document. I'd take that feedback as well.
So do you want to go back? You're going to start with this right here, this that's on the screen.
Yes, so these are the first two focus areas and the guiding principles.
Joe? Councilman Pizzillo?
First, I want to thank you. I read through all of the pieces, and I really appreciate all the effort that's put in there. And again, I really appreciate all your bullet points I have on there, and I appreciate the sensing on the citizens and the residents. But I'm really proud of what you put in there as far as wording is taking care of our workforce, because until we have quality there and we really appreciate the quality of our workforce and we're sure we have the best and the brightest, we can't provide that level of service to our residents that we want. To me, that's a key. So I really appreciate the wording that you have in there about our workforce, because I think that's important. We always talk about resources. We talk about the physical ones. We talk about the human resource. You can call it whatever you want, human capital. But to me, you're only as good as that workforce, the ones that are out there day to day delivering those services to our residents. And if that quality is not there, then the service to our residents deteriorates. So again, all of those points and bullets, I agree with you. You did an excellent job. The only reason why I'm focusing on that because I really feel strong and passionate that that's important to any success of any organization. That's top notch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next, Brandon.
Yeah, I want to say
Councilor
thank you as
Hampton.
well. Thank you as well for putting this together, and to Joe's points as well. Thank you. And then, yeah, I read through it as well, and the only thing I wanted to maybe tweak around economic vitality is something that adds maybe workforce development or creating/supporting small businesses, but I'm not sure exactly where that would look. Maybe focus on jobs, maybe it's a component of that. That'd be the only thing that I think I would add. Other than that, I think it's really good. Thank you.
Any other comments on that comment? All right, Councilman Osborne?
Thank you. You know, there was two things that came to my mind, well, a couple of things that came to my mind as I was reading over these. And sometimes, you know, what you're thinking may be said here and it's just not in your own words. And so, you know, you have to go, okay, does that really capture what I'm thinking? And you know, on the economic vitality side, something that we have focused on for so long is how we are trying to be business friendly, fostering good, you know, processes and low regulation. I mean, those are the things that that help capture, you know, the development to come here. But also one word that I know it says fostering relationships with businesses, which is very good. It's a little broad, but the one word that I'm missing kind of throughout this with economic vitality is also retention. You know, we always look at, you know, and to what Brandon just said on small businesses, there's just that component of retention that sometimes gets missed. And so I don't know how you put that in there, but that was kind of on the economic vitality side that kind of was missing for me. On the fiscal and resource management, the only thing on the fiscal side, and here again, my own words in my mind, were something that we've heard for years, and that's always living within our means. And you do have in here managing finances responsibility and setting responsible priorities. And so to me, that kind of, I do think that captures it, but I guess I had to look around the group and say, does that say to us we're living within our means? And it sounds like it does, but I just wanted to make sure everybody else was saying the same thing to me. Okay, thanks. That was good.
I really actually didn't need that, but that's if the rest of you, I under that managing finances responsibility, that is our responsibility.
Right.
I think that, I don't think it needs to be down to that level. That should be understood on fiscal and resource management, and then as you go down there, managing the finances responsibly.
Yep.
That's what it is, right? In essence, what you said.
Right.
So my feeling is I like what it said, so, but that's just one person here, so feed into it.
No, I think everybody was on.
All right, okay, we got it. Anything else?
Mayor?
Yeah, oh, yes, Bill, thank you for speaking up.
Sure. I think some of the language that we've been talking about here are really some of the guiding principles as opposed to the focus area. The focus area should be overarching, and I think they've done a pretty good job with keeping them very high level, and then the next layer of definition is that guiding principle. And I was looking to see if we had that we talked about what Brandon was talking about, if we supporting the local businesses, retaining the ones we have, and I think perhaps if staff can strengthen the wording under fostering relationships with businesses, we might be able to address both of those. And I agree with you on the comment about we're going to manage, we're going to live within our means, and we're going to manage our money. That we talk about maintaining a long-term view, manage our fiscal, human, and physical resources in an efficient and effective manner. That kind of addresses that. It doesn't call it out specifically, but if you aren't effective, that means you're living outside of your means. And I think getting to the point of can we reasonably explain this to the public? Is this spoken in public terms? I think we can do that with the words that are used, as opposed to saying specifically we will live within our means. I don't think you want to get that specific, and certainly I would. I've done a number of these for clients throughout the country, and we never use the "we're not going to spend more than we bring in." I mean, we never talk about that. So I think so far so good.
Thank you, and I agree with, again, thank you for substantiating that. That's what I liked about this. Every principle was written well enough to be like a dialogue to people, and before it wasn't. So people would say, well, what does that mean? Well, I think you've conquered that. I think that's really easy, and it would not limit to one part of the financial responsibility. So it allows the public to have their own opinion and come back for certain questions. But overall, the title, I think, has been done very, very well. I congratulate you. You've come a long trip on this one. And it's nice to see that I think we're getting to the final, the winner line. So keep going.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for that feedback. I have made note that the explicitly talking about kind of workforce development, small and local business, and retention, those still need to be worked in there. And we will certainly make sure that's reflected in our final draft that goes to you for approval. So we'll do the same thing. I don't know if you got out all the comments you had on all the guiding principles yet, but the other two guiding principle focus areas, sense of community and quality of life, you see those titles posted there. And I'll just do one last round on those two focus areas if there was anything that jumped out for any of you that you'd like to provide feedback on.
Comments? Sherry, Councilman Loretano?
I just want to tell you thank you, and I think these are very, very clean, and I guess I read them pretty broadly to cover a lot of stuff, which I appreciate the fact you did that, and you've come from a book to a very succinct document, so thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Are we going to discuss the quality of life separate, or is this in this
Right now.
conversation right now? I would like to see something about the well-being of our residents. I get the promoting health and wellness. I get that, but the well-being is really important, and that encompasses their entire life, I think.
I'd like some comments on that.
I mean, it can be somewhere, but
Councilman
it doesn't
Pizzillo?
matter.
If the goal was to simplify and put language down that you could actually, if somebody asked you about it, could expand on, what you were talking about, Wally, or, what you were talking about, Joanna, any of that, I think you've done a very good job, because I can take almost any one of these bullet points and drive the point home on any one of those discussions, say it fits in there, if you expand discussion on that subject matter. You know what I mean? So I think it's critical that you put it in English for, I mean, put it in a language that everybody can read it and says, oh, yeah, that makes sense. The more details and the more you stretch that, then it starts to sound like a government document.
gets confusing.
And it loses
It's
its
confusing.
effectiveness. So again, I really appreciate the effort you put in this. And I went through it, and even though it's not my area especially, I thought you did a fantastic job. And it was easy for me to follow, and it was easy for me to come on board with what you developed on that draft document. So I want to thank you for that.
Mayor, if I may briefly, I want to clarify with Vice Mayor Campbell on the well-being comment as well taken. Is that, just to clarify with you, Vice Mayor, you just kind of want to make sure that's broad enough to encompass the whole person, so physical health, spiritual health, all of those kinds of things?
Well, not necessarily, because we don't drive their health care or any of that. That's not ours. But the well-being of someone just means, it's just a term used in quality of life, and it encompasses everything. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not worth spending 15 minutes to wordsmith one word, so
Certainly.
I take it all back.
I appreciate that.
Gee willikers.
Because, you know, we do communities safe, we're doing the health, their wellness, and we're going to take care of the environment around. And taking care of an environment can have several aspects to it. Councilman Hampton?
Yeah, I think the same as well. I think that everything looks pretty broad enough to encompass a lot of things. I mean, to Wally's point, I don't know if the word thrive maybe might be if she's looking for that, but I think I see everything in all of these phrases here. It's very broad. Every time I think of something, I can kind of fit it into one of these lines.
It gives you another word to use when you're having conversation with someone. When they talk about it, you know, the two words you are good words, so you can use them in your conversation. And this allows us to come back with our own creative conversation on each of these. Any other comments?
I have one.
Councilman Osborne?
I kind of figured Joe would have already grabbed this one, but under quality of life, to me, it was missing the keeping our city well-maintained and with a clean appearance. I mean, that was something that is always on your
Is that now
mind.
environment?
Because when I think of taking care of the environment, that's not it. In my mind, environment is something else. That's protecting our lands.
You're thinking about the
I'm
fields.
thinking of the environment. I'm thinking of our mountains and our things like that. I don't think of, you know, weed-free and well-maintained, and I don't think of that when I think of environment. But to Wally's point, when you say health and wellness, I do think of well-being. To me, that encompasses a lot of it. So I do feel good about that one. But this environment, that doesn't say well-maintained and what did I write? Well-maintained and clean appearance.
To me, well-being means low taxes, low, great city services.
All encompasses that.
And that gets into financial, so, now you're crossing the bridge there, bringing that in. And well-being, so, yeah, really, Councilman Osborne, you care about my well-being? I would come back at you on that.
Can I hear it?
About I'm talking about, you tell me you're going to promote health and my wellness, but I'm not so sure it can help my well-being. It means
All I'm
other
saying
things.
is it makes me think of
Yes.
everything.
Well, I'm just trying to stimulate that because that could be other things of well-being.
I'm not asking for it to be changed.
No, we're having a conversation here. Don't get offensive here. Every now and then the mayor likes to say something, so, okay? Are we all ready? Are we ready to go on?
No,
All right.
I was just going to say, it's all a matter on your perspective. For me, the environment is all-encompassing. What I live in, I don't want trash in the yard.
Like
I
big
don't want-
arms going
So
around
it's, is it potato or potato? You know what I mean? Whichever way you go at it. So it all depends on how each of them want to come up. But for me, I do, I'm always a big proponent of, if you're going to promote a city, you want to look like you're on the way up, not on the way down, which means weed-free, no graffiti, because everybody knows I try that all the time. So, but that's what I did.
This is clean air. This is.
Getting
Yeah,
poetic.
but,
That's
yeah.
environment.
I think of it differently.
All right, can we come together on this one? All right, let's move on.
Mayor,
Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you for speaking up.
just a reminder, get close to your mics, please. I think in the quality of life focus area, it says in a a well-maintained environment, and maybe it's the word environment that's throwing everybody off,
Thank you.
but it may be a matter of in a well-maintained community and environment may be the simple solution to it all. The other question about the well-being piece, I don't know what that means. Outside of under promoting health and wellness, we say while improving the health of their minds, bodies, and spirits. Is there something in well-being that doesn't address? Because if there is, I would love to be educated on it and then use this in another community somewhere.
I think that's, again, Bill, I appreciate the suggestion, but the mayor is going to speak up on this one. Okay, we're not going to get into their minds and their pride and, I mean, that's their responsibility. The things we do and the things they have and the things we vote on all the time should build pride. If it doesn't, then I have to put that on the shoulders of the individual, not taking advantage of how well the city is run and all the activities that we have. I think we can get into hitting too many aspects of the internal side of the human being. And so I like back when you first made your announcement as you came in that you just kind of liked those words and they were broad and they work. So that's my comments. Anybody else want to?
Mayor, can I jump back in?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so under the guiding principle that says promoting health and wellness, and I don't know, Pam, if you can show that or not.
I can bring it up on Elmo, I believe, if you want the full text.
Yeah, I didn't know what you're showing, so I
She's working it, Bill.
assumed they were all up. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I have the definition pulled up on Elmo.
Okay, so the guiding principle under quality of life, promoting health and wellness, that's where I was reading mind, body, and spirit from. It's the last sentence there. So if there's disagreement with that, this is probably the time that the staff would like to hear that, is my guess. If you're okay with the language, then that leaves that up to the individual interpretation, which I think is broad enough for us to say okay. It also gives us the quote-unquote strategic authority to further the wellness park and dedicate any staff time to participating in that, because that is about the mind, the body, and the spirit, if I remember that presentation correctly.
Council?
That's good. Yeah.
Do I hear nodding heads? All right, you got it. Not gonna argue
Okay,
that.
can I have the presentation back, please?
Thank you.
All right, we're down to the final section, which is also the media section of the plan. So our strategic goals, as I mentioned, when we left the planning retreat last October, City Council, along with our leadership team on staff, work together within each focus area to look at creating true SMART goals for the city. As you'll remember, in previous plans, there was sometimes miscommunication or frustration around what did complete actually mean when it came to a goal, because maybe they were framed broadly or someone meant one thing, but the staff interpreted a different way. And so one of the efforts as we have set goals is to follow this SMART goal framework, so that our goals can be well understood and implemented. So these goals will be telling the organization and the staff sort of, how do we know if Goodyear is winning? You know, are we meeting these high-level goals that the council has set up for us? Progress reports on these goals right now are intended for a biannual timeframe. So every 6 months you'd be getting an update. Some of that has to do with just some of these goals are pretty far-reaching goals, and so to have meaningful progress updates, we recommend a 6 months time frame. We are absolutely open to other suggestions if there's another cycle that you'd prefer. as you'll remember, due to time limitations during the retreat, we sort of set out draft goals, and staff went back and really put teams together on the subject matter experts that related to each of the draft goals. And we took a hard look at what are the current measures, are the numbers that we're coming up with reasonable to achieve. During the retreat, we threw out like 30% or 20% or these different things. And so we wanted to make sure, first of all, what is our current state and is that goal achievable based on our existing trends? So you will see some revisions from what you walked away from the retreat looking at. Now I want to discuss the goals one focus area at a time, and I'll also bring in the feedback that I received from council in the last month. And staff recommends moving forward with the 14 goals that have been kind of fully vetted. And then if council wishes to explore one of the other recommendations, our one request is that we would really try to just capture your intent in this meeting. What is the general focus of the goal you're looking for? And then give us an opportunity to make sure kind of the numbers line up or the specific metric works with our current operations. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, we got it. So I will jump into the fiscal and resource management goals, and we will kind of establish consensus focus area by focus area. And I do have the background information on each goal, so we welcome your questions. Staff is here to support that. So here are 4 goals in fiscal resource management that came from the retreat with some modification with staff where appropriate. The first was to create a replacement program for all city capital assets by fiscal year 2021. I have received from multiple folks that you want fully funded to be spelled out in that goal, make it clear that we want to fully fund that asset program, and we're happy to make that change. The second goal, that by July 1st, 2018, we adopt a new 5-year capital improvement plan that's 100% deliverable as presented. So very clear, setting the expectation up front, what is actually getting done in this plan year by year. 3, improving employee satisfaction and engagement by 10% by fiscal year 2021. That number, the background, just so you know on that one, when we walked out of the retreat, I think the number was 25%. We went back and looked at the metrics that we have that relate to employee satisfaction, and we're actually overall doing quite well as an organization. So our satisfaction ratings as a whole are in the 95 plus percentile. So increasing something like that by 25% certainly is not possible. And so what we did is our HR team went back and looked, is there a kind of a specific question where we can move the needle where staff said agree, and we can move that 10% up to strongly agree. And so that was sort of the reasoning behind that. Again, I can go into more specifics as needed. And then finally, we had a goal around automation and process improvement. And so we got a cross-departmental team together to talk about that. And what we came up with was implementing technology solutions to expand online accessibility to city services and increase organizational capacity through improving or automating an additional 50 services by fiscal year 2021. So the idea there is that council sets a bold benchmark that over the next 3 years, we, through our continuous improvement journey, are going to take a look at 50 ways we can improve the customer experience through Goodyear across all of our departments. And so that number was really arrived at looking at sort of existing wish lists of processes we might improve that we just haven't gotten to yet, along with looking, when we look across our departments, that's kind of a handful of services in each department that would get improved through a variety of ways, online accessibility being one of the ways. And so that's sort of a little bit of the story behind that goal. So I'm going to pause here, and if you have any additional questions or concerns about that goal, I'll take those goals. I'll take them now.
All right, Council? Councilman Zillow?
I'm not sure, Pam, if it's going to show up somewhere else, but again, you've heard me say this before. I'm concerned about our turnover rate in the city. I know we've had some difference of opinion on why there's that turnover rate, but I think somehow that's part of your resource management, especially from maintaining that historical perspective of those. If you have too high a turnover rate, then what happens is you don't have any historicals with the people that are there. Knowledge So I don't know where that fits into, but I've had concerns over the last couple of fiscal years about the percentage of turnover. And from my perspective, and again, I'm not there day to day, but based on our benefits, based on our retirement, based on our pay, based on the type of organization we are, and I realize there's retirements, et cetera, I personally think it's too high. So I don't know how that fits in there or what's causing it. Because again, I'm not here day to day, and I don't think it's money, even though that's been presented to us before. So I want to make sure somehow that's captured and that we work to try to hone in and figure out what that is for a city our size and organization and turnover.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Pizzillo. So I will take one step back briefly, and we are interested in feedback today. If we start hearing lots and lots of new ideas for new goals at a certain point, I think that as a group we might agree some of these things should roll over to a next plan. I'm not going to dictate which, but I want to state that for our purposes of sort of getting through this plan process. That being said, something like turnover rate is something we track. It is part of our guiding principle around retaining our employees. And so that spirit is, in my opinion, captured. I think the question would become, what is the overall outcome of the organization that you wish to see achieved that maybe the turnover rate would play a part in, as we try to keep our goals focused on that more strategic outcome kind of public-facing level.
And that's fine. I don't want to get down into the weeds, but you'll hear it during the budget process. You'll hear it as we go forward, some of my concerns and maybe some of the underlying clauses of why that's happening within the various departments. I'll probably be asking for turnover by department, over the last couple of years. So again, I just want to make sure that focus is still there because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a firm believer that you're only as good as employees working for you, period. End of story. So.
Agreed. Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, Bill, you have it.
I don't know if the slide came up with recommended goals or not.
We are not quite there yet.
Oh.
Would you like me to move?
Well, okay, wait, hold it, Bill, because any other comments here? Yeah, Councilman Loretano.
I have a question on number 3, and I don't know, maybe that just needs to be tweaked a little from what you said with the survey, because maybe make that engagement to highly satisfied by 10%, because I don't remember the highly satisfied being that high. And I know it's taking maybe 2 or 3 categories. There was, 6 categories, and 3 were kind of negative, neutral, or positive. And I know if you add them together, but I think that needs to make it a little bit clearer and cleaner.
You have that information right there to give her?
Sure. So what I can share with you, so our overall favorability rate satisfaction is at 90%. So that's strongly agree, those categories. When you look at the strongly agree category, that's where we currently have 52% of employees saying strongly agree. And so when we look at our trends over time, a shift of 10% to that strength of agreement was sort of where the HR team was looking at sort of measuring that influence.
So what you're saying, that's attainable, at the 52 and the 10% on. If you raise that, then you're actually striving for something really at that time frame will not be attainable.
I would say it's attainable and a stretch, because certainly moving 10% of the organization in an every other year survey, a lot of factors contribute to that, but it's sort of the measures available to us that we can really say, have we made progress? That was sort of what the team arrived at in terms of a measure that could be tracked.
Okay, so if it goes into either agree or strongly agree, then that makes the 10%, either one of those. Okay.
So, Mayor,
Vice Mayor?
I was under the impression that the employees were not highly satisfied. And you're coming up with the 90 and then using that as your base. I'm very surprised. So it would be very difficult to improve upon that.
I'm gonna invite our HR director.
But that's all I've heard for the last 6 months is how not happy everyone is. So I don't know how we can be 90% all of a sudden.
Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor Campbell, Looking back at our 2016 survey, our overall favorability rating for, and we're looking specifically at the question, let's see here, overall, I'm satisfied with my job. Is the
In
question that we asked.
2016, not 2017?
2016 was our last survey.
Okay.
And our overall rating there was 90%. That's a favorability rating, and that's for employees that rate that score as strongly agree and agree. So they agreed with that comment. If you break that down, 52% indicated that they strongly agreed with that response. 38% indicated that they agree with the response. So the goal would be moving that 52% to 62% that strongly agree with it. So back to Pam's point earlier, our overall satisfaction ratings are good at 90% favorability. And those are in line with our benchmark cities that we're looking at. So we feel good about the score. However, we know that there's room for improvement. And where we would look to improve would be to take that to a rating where we've got more employees that are strongly agreeing with that.
A survey that we go out to the public is very similar to that, right? Yeah.
And I couldn't comment on how those ratings compare, but.
Well, I don't know who can comment it, but that's the way the assumption was on our part. I guess we don't have anybody who can address our survey. Are you again? Okay. Interim city manager's going to do that, okay?
I can pull it up if you give me just a moment.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, Bill.
Okay, well, the only question, what was the percentage of employees that returned that survey?
76% in our last survey in 2016.
So, I think one of the things that we would potentially ask staff to look at when they're looking at that, improving the rating, is also to improve the number of employees that participate in that. We're only capturing a percentage of the employees, and I think some of the truth is found in the 25% of the employees that didn't take the survey, or whatnot. So I think we have to be cognizant of that, and to get to Wally's comment that all that she's heard has been some level of dissatisfaction. That's the same thing that I've heard, and I'm sure at a much different level than Wally's been hearing it. So I think that may be one of the other benchmarks that they want to consider internally. But I think overall we have to ask ourselves as a council, we want them to move the needle. We want them to move it in the right direction. So let's give them an opportunity to do that as we review it. And that gets to the additional goal that I had suggested about improving technical skill and leadership competency. That is, if we initiate something like that, that will start to move the needle as well, because if you really look at the employee survey, some of the things that they were talking about were related directly to the ability for them to grow individually into their positions or other positions, and the issues that they're having with their supervision in whatever category that is, whether it's their next line or two lines above supervision. So if you look at those goals, that was kind of why I suggested we look at those two opportunities. So when that slide eventually makes its way, it's related to this conversation about employee satisfaction.
I like the idea about percentage of increasing the number of employees who fill out the form, fill out the survey. I mean, that's a goal. I don't know what the realistic percentage of that goal would be. I'm not saying 10%. I don't know, but that would mean that we would be working towards response from them so that we know where to go.
Certainly, Mayor. I think one of the goals is always to increase our participation rates. Our participation rates did drop down from our 2014 survey to our 2016 survey. So we would absolutely be looking to increase the participation rate.
Everybody happy with that? All right, let's go on.
And Mayor, just to clarify, so again, from my hat, strategic planning hat, something like the participation rate, we see that very much as a tactical goal within the kind of the human resources department as they're managing that survey rather than, you know, your top 10 council strategy is your rate of response on the, you know what I'm saying? So if I'm hearing the direction, that's feedback for the department, that overall this sort of higher level of satisfaction is okay with council with some increased understanding of sort of what's behind that?
Yeah, because we would get the results of that. I mean, so in between, it would furnish us, and if we find that this is not working, we can set another goal or yeah.
It's an action item for you to measure.
Okay.
Mayor, did you want the citizen satisfaction survey results that you were alluding to just a moment ago? You thought they were similar.
Somebody was that Wally?
93% of the citizens rate Goodyear as an excellent place, excellent or good place to live, and 92% of our citizens rate Goodyear neighborhoods favorably. So they were also around that.
Thank you. All right, go ahead. Do you understand this?
So if I'm correct, I'm hearing consensus support for the full 4 goals in front of you as written. Is that correct? We can move forward with those. Okay. Now I will bring up, and Councilmember Stipp, just so you know, the slide I'm moving to next incorporates the feedback that you had provided by email. So before we get into discussion, I just, as I mentioned, you know, we just received this in the last couple of weeks, and so there hasn't been the same sort of staff vetting process on these ideas. So you all are seeing these for the first time, and staff has just had sort of some cursory reactions to it, and we'll tell you, so the fully funded edit on goal number 1, fully funded replacement program, that's very well taken. That's easy to incorporate. And then the first council idea there that Councilmember Stipp alluded to about preparing employees to operate efficiently and effectively. Our feedback there is very well taken, very much incorporated into our guiding principles, our focus area, the general way that we want to operate as a community. That is not currently in a SMART goal kind of outcome format. So we would want to hear better from you that sort of the intent is what is sort of the outcome that results from that we can be able to track. And then the second idea on implementing Invisio to improve progress reports given to council quarterly. That's something that we are currently working with that system to provide you your reports, and certainly as we establish better goals for you, the reports and the quality of the feedback that you get from staff will improve as well. I just want to clarify council intent there that that is sort of an operational how we provide feedback on the report. Not quite understanding if the intent there is for that to be a strategic goal or if that's feedback to say we'd like to hear from you quarterly through the tool that you're currently using. So those are the initial staff reactions on those two, and now I'll open it up to council to provide any direction they'd like to staff on those 2 ideas.
Joe?
Mayor, can I address those?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
Okay, so the first one I alluded to earlier that, and I, again, don't know the specifics, but I imagine that there is some HR initiatives already in play to work at building employee skills in their technical and leadership competency. That HR look at that and find out what they can or cannot do in that area. I can't give you a SMART goal because I'm not the HR person, or I'm not the city trainer, or whatever the case may be. So I guess just to add to what I said earlier, if we can improve people's ability to grow within their position or grow out of their position into another, and we can improve the leadership around them, then we will start to see improvement in the employee satisfaction arena as well. So I guess I would defer to the professionals on staff to advise that, and obviously if council agrees on that particular item. The second item is the Invisio, which we have seen, I think, one report on, which was very detailed, but actually provided hey, we are actually working on these, and this is what we're doing. It is a large staff muscle movement. We've invested a lot of time in the trial. The software was free. If we intend to move it forward, we're going to invest money in it. Both of those, and it's going to take longer than a year to implement through. Therefore, it is strategic in nature. And that is why I suggested it as a goal, and that as the staff learns how to use it, that by through FY19, that we get those quarterly reports, do an evaluation on it, whether we need them quarterly or not, and then the staff can institutionalize it, and it comes off the list. That was the theory behind it. And I'm done.
Thank you. Comments? Councilman Osborne?
I think I understand, Bill, the first item and the third item. I think the one, though, that prepare employees to operate efficiently and effectively by building skills, back to whether we're in the weeds of what HR does, or to me, this is something that's a goal that we would actually give to the city manager, and that's one of their goals. So I guess I have a harder time with that one. The other two, I don't have a problem with.
So the theory with that is, and I don't disagree that that's a manager goal. However, as a council, we have historically given the city manager very specific goals that are, while they're responsible for everything, they are way too deep, where organizationally we are saying, because this is not just HR's responsibility, this becomes every department's responsibility because it's in the strategic plan. If this was just an HR thing and we said, hey, HR, you need to do these two things, then I would agree wholeheartedly that this is a in-the-weeds discussion. But because this is going to transcend every department and every level within the organization, that's what makes this strategic. And the end result is an improvement in the employee satisfaction. So that is more than just the city manager's responsibility. That becomes everyone's responsibility. And I hate to think that we're going to sit down with the new manager and we're going to give her 40 goals that we're not going to pull up and be very strategic ourselves about the goals that we give to the new manager.
Thank you, Bill. Comments? Councilman Mazzillo?
Yeah, I kind of piggyback on what Councilman Stipp was mentioned to the extent that, don't want to get into weeds, don't get me wrong, but I think it ties into taking care of our workforce and some of the things else we have here on our guiding principle. It kind of flows in there. As far as they're the professionals, let them figure out what's needed to do there, but I think it ultimately will impact turnover, satisfaction surveys, et cetera, in that piece. Number one, the only problem I have with number one, fully funded. It's a nice goal, but if we fully fund all of our capital replacement assets by 2021, we're going to get some type of major award somewhere, because I don't think that, even though it's an ultimate goal and it's great, and I would love to see it, but I think it's going to be very difficult to be fully funded. Now, knowing what all has to be funded and seeing where our shortfalls are, I think that's critical. But if we can get it fully funded, that's great. As far as Invisio, I'll go with the council's consensus on that. That's fine.
Next. Councilman Hampton?
Yeah, so I appreciate Bill's clarification. I thought that last one was getting down into the weeds. I don't know if we need to have the word Invisio in there I don't know if it's too specific or not, or if we're for sure going to go with Invisio, does it give you enough leverage or leeway to back out of Invisio if you need to? I guess is what I was thinking. I don't know if it's too deep in the weeds or not.
Would you like to address that one?
Sure, Councilmember Hampton. That was really where we were coming from is we don't see a question of whether or not we provide regular update reports on strategic plan progress. That is absolutely a part of our performance management cycle. And regardless of what tool we use, that will be something that we will be constantly striving to give you information however as you best can use it. And so our fear would be that does not give us the flexibility that, we so far have really enjoyed using the Invisio tool. It's the most robust strategic planning tool I've personally worked with after working in a few cities. That being said, if you get 2 quarters worth of reports and you're saying, this just isn't working for us, to us, that's sort of the operational response side of things. In the same way that you wouldn't necessarily dictate in the strategic plan every piece of software we use for different operations.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should call out specific software in case it give you the leverage to change and be flexible. So, but that's just my thoughts.
Next, Councilman Loretano.
One, I think is a great goal to have. I don't know if it's obtainable. What?
Can you speak?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if that one's attainable. I think exactly what Joe said. I don't mind putting it as a goal, but I don't really know if that's something we can actually obtain. It's a number 2 that seems to be broad enough to put in there. Number 3, the majority wants it in. I have no heartburn, but I think it might be a little too specific.
Next, comments? Vice Mayor?
Well, since we've had to replace our telephone system and we've had to chase our computer system, I would like an update on Invisio to see how we're doing, to see if we're really going to be able to accomplish that. I agree with Joe about the fully funded. It would be wonderful, but this is a goal that we're just trying to aspire to. It doesn't mean we're necessarily going to hit it, and maybe we need to leave the fully funded words in just so that we can strive towards that goal. And building the skills and everyone that has a job, I would hope in this city aspires to move up, to upward mobility. And I think it is incumbent to everyone in a supervisorial position to encourage the employees to be the best that they can be and to provide whatever avenues they can to that employee so that employee can prosper and move up. No one likes to sit in a dead-end job or to know that there'll never be any advancement. And I know we've done a fairly good job, but then maybe we've not done enough. And if we are going to be all encompassed to take care of the workforce, this is really important, I think, to give them the incentive that they know we as council care about them, that we want them to have opportunities that they can advance.
Councilman Pasillo?
I don't know, tell me if I'm off on this one there, Rourke, but I know in this budget cycle, probably for the first time, we're going to see project timelines for, the capital projects on when we expect them to start, where expected to be finished, et cetera. Again, I don't want to get into the weeds, but I think what would be helpful since we're doing that is to get quarterly updates on where the status is of the CIP. Because I know we used to do that. I think there was somebody in the manager's office that used to do that quite a while ago, where each project was tracked so we know if the timelines was to complete it, say in August, it slipped a little bit, now it's, November or whatever the case may be. That's what I would like to see, since we're going to do that this year in that overall process. That would be very helpful quarterly. Not monthly, quarterly would be fine to me. Am I okay there? Attorney?
Mayor, if I could jump in for a second. So
Yes.
when the report that
Be sure you
Councilman-
talk in the microphone because it's not coming through well.
the CIP report that was just mentioned did go away, but it was replaced with a real-time web site that lists our CIP projects and their current status. So we can send that link back out to make sure that council is aware of that, can see if that meets your needs.
It probably will. I was, be honest with you, I was unaware that that link was out there, so, okay.
All right, then I'm going to talk. I don't like the fully funded. Just it opens up doors. we don't know what the economy from year to year is going. We don't know where problems pop up. That's not very flexible. I think fully funded, and it's going to come back to bite us. There'll be something somewhere on the agenda that we will not fully fund, and everybody said, but you said you'd fully fund. So I stay away from that. I want to just, at the time we're in council, I want to be honest. I want to be able, when I say a figure and we know we can't do something, I want to be able to say you can't do something. I don't want to have to hide behind, oh, we said fully funded, now we're going to have to make some sacrifices here. I don't like that at all. So for me, fully funded is not something I want in it. Well, I don't know. How was that? That was me speaking. Where are you on that? Nodded? Yes? No?
I don't think we're going to make it anyway.
Want to answer?
I can understand your sentiment, Mayor. And the way it is stated, yes, that would be concerning. The way that Wally had said, is it a goal that we could try to achieve? That's a different scenario than what is stated here. And you know what? That's fine. If it's the majority feels that, one, it's not obtainable, and two, it could set us up for failure, I don't mind taking it out. But I do respect what Wally said by saying it's something we want to try to achieve, because it is, you know, that's something we always
That's
want
kind
to
of
try
a,
to achieve.
that's kind of a known
But,
when you do the
of
budget.
course,
We don't start the budget with saying, oh, well, no, we're not going to fully fund everything here. We're going to do, we don't have, the budget discussions are so detailed, and you tell people the truth and honest with them at that point, and we have no crystal ball here.
No,
We
absolutely.
don't know what's going to happen next year or the year after. Every time we program something, we think this is going to be the greatest year, and then something happens. Who knew the downturn was going to come?
This was something that obviously
So again,
Councilmember Stipp felt strongly about, and he put it out here. This is the first time we're going to talk
I
about it
didn't know
as a
he put
group.
it. So
I thought this was one of his.
They're all his.
Yeah, these
No,
are his.
can I interject there?
yes, you may. I didn't know you put that on it. You have the floor.
That was based on the conversation that we had during the retreat in October. That's the only reason that I called it back out, because during that discussion, it was, we need to fully fund our replacement plan. We're not talking about the capital, we're not talking about the CIP or anything else. It's the equipment replacement fund and replacing the equipment. So if we say we need to replace these assets, then we should have really identified how do we fund them. Now, it may not mean that we're actually going to execute it that way, but at least identify, for example, and this is what came up during the budget, during the retreat, you know, when we broke into small little groups, and the small little group was myself, Councilmember Pizzillo, Dan Cotterman, I think Alan was in that, and Doug, and we all were standing there talking about it, and it came down to, we have all these assets that we need to replace, and we never talk about funding how we're going to do that until potentially you get in a crisis where you have to fund all of that now. So wouldn't it be nice if we had a fully funded replacement program, and then every year we get to decide whether we're going to fully fund it or not, but at least we know what we're up against, that we're not pushing a blind can down the road saying, well, this year we're going to do $20,000 of mowers, when in fact we really have a need to do $120,000. I mean, we never talk about that, and we don't make the conscious decision whether to fund or not to fund based on an unknown number. So that was the genesis that I recall of that conversation, and that's the only point of the fully funded replacement program, is that we have an understanding of what it would cost us to fully do that. And we've done it with every program. We did it with the streets program. Hey, if we have to do all of our streets, it's going to cost us $100 million. So what we decided to do is, over a period of time, we're going to do $2 million a year a street, and and we're going to get it done.
Is that fully
We've done
funded?
that with everything but the replacement equipment, and I think that was the genesis of it. So however we want to wordsmith that, Because that's again, a long-term goal is what would this look like fully funded? It doesn't commit us to fund, it doesn't say, and maybe there's a way to wordsmith that we're not committed to it, but at least we as the council understand the long-term implication of what replacing all of this equipment or those assets look like. Doesn't mean we have to do it, but what does the plan look like?
I think
We've
the
got
fully,
plans for
it's just,
everything, but we
I'm
have no
going to
idea
say it
what any-
again, it's just putting us up for controversy. I think that it just is. We all have the intent to fully fund everything that we have for the city, if at all possibility. And I think we've done very well as a council. I think, Joe, I think you were the one that brought up about the asset management. And we started right from then. So I'll go along with the sentiment, but I think it's fully is not the word that we need to be doing in there.
Yeah, maybe it's a different word, but or at least have a snapshot of it. But that was the genesis of the conversation. This was not Bill's great idea. This was a conglomeration of the conversation. So I'm not married to it, and I'm just speaking from the experience of being in other communities that the elected officials did not realize the extent of the need in the community until it was too late.
Well, I think that we as a council have been very specific on that in building asset management, and we have been growing the program each year. But the fully, still, Bill, I am just,
No, I'm
I'll
not
go
stuck
along
on the
with
word
what the
fully.
council says,
Please
but I don't like the word. I don't like the way it's being used, and I think it can be deceptive to the public if we don't do what it says at all times. And I just don't know if we're there. Yes.
I would agree with that as well.
But a compromise, something as simple as develop a replacement program for all city capital assets. Because if you're going to develop a replacement program, you're going to, number one, know what the cost is associated with replacing that equipment. So the focus is building the program to know what those needs are by 2021, so you know what those shortfalls are.
And council, that is how the existing proposed language does read from staff for goal number 1 is create the replacement program for city capital assets. So, neutralize the heartburn, but understand operationally as we work through our replacement programs, and I'm not the technical expert, but every department is some degree along with their asset replacement programs. That is a consideration as it's developed.
So council's going to let me have my way on this one? I appreciate
It
that.
still requires you to do the replacement.
I like the replacement, I think.
Okay. Thank you. So I feel like I did hear consensus on the second bullet point around employee preparation, sort of working with supervisors, leadership, promotional opportunities. We don't know exactly what the kind of appropriate measure is yet, but I think I'm hearing consensus direction that staff go ahead and move forward with adding a 5th goal to the area related to that. In terms of the progress updates, I'm hearing clear consensus in terms of you want the updates. It seems quarterly meets your needs better than twice a year.
If we can.
Okay, council, tell me, yes, no?
Mayor, can I step in for a second? I just want to make council aware it's sort of a laborious process to put all of those updates together. So if you do decide to go quarterly, just understand there is a lot of labor that goes into that.
So what might happen, there are other agendas that the council is demanding and wants, and this makes this a little bit more difficult quarterly to do this. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
I just want you to be cognizant of the fact that soliciting those updates on all of the activities from the departments requires that a number of staff log into the system and make sure that their updates are provided, and that goes through some workflow. So it's possible we can do it quarterly. I just want you to be aware of the labor that goes into doing that.
So the man hours in that, do we know that?
I don't know off the top of my head.
That would be nice to let the council know that.
Are we talking everything or just capital improvement plan?
Everything.
Because I was talking about capital improvement plan. That's it.
Okay. Just the way that the Invisio reports
okay.
here are proposed to be quarterly versus twice a year.
I was just referring because this year with the capital improvement plan, we're, putting budget timelines and all that type of stuff in there, that if we got a quarterly report on the capital improvement plan itself would be helpful. Now, I don't think that's going to take as much as all of the stuff that we were talking about. But again, I don't know where everybody is on that last one, but I think it would be important to see if any of those projects are slipping or on time.
Okay.
For council. That's where I was kind of looking at.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, because I work with a couple folks in the city manager's office on these reports, and there's about a 3-week lead time of, okay, reporting cycles coming down the pipeline, make time for your update and so on, and then there's the kind of final editing that goes into your report. And so, quarterly, that means really about every 2 months we're starting the cycle over again. And so that's where, a compromise might be, and this would be in conjunction with our new city manager of, every 6 months you can count on the full strategic plan update, but as needed we have many vehicles for giving you updates on specific projects, and so maybe that would be an opportunity to keep other communication lines open.
That we would need for conversation. Is that, everybody agreed on that?
So are we comfortable moving to the next focus area?
So I just.
Councilman Hampton.
Maybe this is just a point of process, or I don't know, I know we're getting close to, this is going a little longer here. I don't know if we want to do the city council meeting and then come back to this after the city council meeting tonight, just to throw it out there.
Want to do what?
I don't know if we want to postpone the rest of this, table this until after the city council meeting so we can do the city council meeting for all the people that are here and then come back. But I don't want to take it out of process.
Just about finished on
Okay.
this. I think we can all come to terms on this part and then go on.
Okay.
Just ask one thing real quick.
Yes.
Just a suggestion.
Vice Mayor.
Can I suggest some of these quarterly reports, they're not so wordy, and there's not so much stuff in there that it's not really what we want to know, but you're embellishing all this stuff of why we do what we do. Just if we could just have a concise report, maybe an executive summary, I mean, something that doesn't take 3 weeks to put together and 150 staff hours. Because we just want to know if the project's on time, if it's not, who's doing it. I mean, we're not asking for a monthly report, but let's try to simplify it a little bit because, we're overwhelmed with just this stuff. Just with this plan, it's just overwhelming with all of the paper and the stuff, so.
We appreciate that feedback. Absolutely. As we work on improving our processes internally, we will have that direction and that coaching for our departments.
Okay. All right, anything else?
All right. So we have 3 focus areas to go and a handful of goals. So in economic vitality, these came from the retreat. Some of the numbers got updated, but for the most part, I think they stayed pretty much in line with the intent of council. So the first deals with growing our property tax base. So that's focusing really on those rooftops and capital investments in our community. These numbers came directly from the finance department, looking over at trends in terms of our growth averages over the past several years and what we think we might be able to achieve on trend. The second deals directly with job creation, so a goal of over the next 3 years, an increase in jobs by 4,500, of which 2,000 are in our targeted industries. The third, and this one I know will be of particular interest to all of you, so increasing the number of restaurant and entertainment businesses in our community by 10%. So that amounts to roughly 16 new businesses on record in those categories. And then finally, increasing sales tax revenue, so boosting that retail presence and bringing more in for our city funds.
Comments? Councilman Pizzillo?
I appreciate the goals. My only concern is if you divide 3 into 10, it's 3% a year. Is that a goal that we want to shoot for? Because if we're only growing at 3% a year in our general fund, I know it's more than just retail. We're going to probably have some issues meeting our day-to-day expenses, as we add new programs. And then on entertainment, from 18, that's 3, that's another 3% on entertainment. So I know they're 2 categories together, but if we're just on those 2 alone averaging 3%, that means we're looking at a 3% growth rate through 2021 for our general fund sales tax. I guess, to me, the numbers seem low, but again, I don't do this day to day, so I don't know. I'd have to ask the finance director that, but when I'm dividing it by 3, it just seems low.
We've got the finance director coming up.
I'm going to start by apologizing because I have not looked at those numbers for a little while. But we did go through and specifically put formulas together and look at what our experience has had and made sure that we put numbers in there that were a little bit more of a stretch than what we had actually been gaining. When we look at number one, the hardest part about number one when it comes to the tax base and the primary assessed valuation is that's a 2-year delay. So what's already happened in years 1 and 2 has already happened, so we're really only impacting year 3. When it comes to the sales tax and the retail classifications, that's based on actual hard data.
So if I understand you, Doug, what you're saying is probably trending 3% new growth in sales tax that covers our general fund operating revenue.
Correct.
Interesting information. That's probably not going to be very insightful when we start our budget process coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, go ahead. Any other comments? All right, let's move on.
So then we received feedback from Councilmember Stipp regarding 2 additional ideas in the economic vitality area. And again, as we discussed in the last focus area, we would take this back as direction and work on this. So the first was regarding streamlining city development and tenant improvement processes through electronic plan review system. This is something that was in a previous plan, and the work has been underway, as you all know, in making process improvements. From my perspective, we have that goal set out for process improvements across the enterprise, and I would see this fitting well within that as an opportunity to update within that existing goal. But if council wishes to specifically call that out again, we will certainly take that feedback. And then the second relates to the Phoenix Goodyear Airport Master Plan, which of course you are getting an update as soon as the regular meeting starts today. And that one we just need some additional clarity on what is intended by that, given the Airport Master Plan itself is implemented through the city of Phoenix.
Mayor?
Yes, Bill.
Okay, and I, at this point, tend to agree with Pam on the Phoenix Goodyear Airport Master Plan issue, since we obviously don't control it. So I would defer on that one. It may not necessarily be in this. The other one is the city development and tenant improvement process. While I realize in the previous focus area we do call out expanding online accessibility to city services and increase organizational capacity, we have all, for at least the last 5 years, been beating our heads about development and tenant improvement process and the electronic plan review. And as a matter of fact, that has been a goal in our previous plan for the entire length of the plan. And if you looked at the last update that we got, and granted it was several months ago, we were only like 25% complete with it, or 50% complete. So we've been kicking this thing around, and I specifically called this out because we have all been dying to get this done so that we can streamline the process, and thought it was perhaps important enough to call it out specifically as a goal in and of itself under economic vitality, because as we talked earlier, supporting tenant improvements is support of local business. The development process is support of local enterprises looking to come into our city. That's all about economic vitality, and if we don't call that out, it's going to get buried in another lofty, ambiguous goal that is actually in the fiscal resource management piece, and it's not even in economic vitality. That was the only reason that I put that one in there. The other one I'm not married to, and deferred to the staff's judgment.
Thank you, Bill. Any comments? Yes, Councilman Hampton?
Yeah, I'm okay with the first one. I don't know if to his point, now I see now why it's so specific. But I just wanted to make sure that we also just captured our lean, our process improvement around commercial, residential processes to keep streamlining, whatever that looks like. But I see why he has it as very specific with electric plan review. But pretty much the spirit of we want to keep our process improvement going, whatever that looks like in the residential or commercial process.
Absolutely.
So if this may be something, I don't know if that's an addition to that one, or if that is in the spirit of that one, or if it's somewhere else, but that's my comment on that one. And then also economic vitality, something I would like to possibly add is something around a specific goal around maybe, I don't know, small business creation or utilizing the innovation hub, increasing the use of it, or something around workforce development, or something like that. I can't think of something very specific to measure right now. Maybe a number of, could be more contacts with Innovation Hub, or more graduates, or it could be more numbers at the Chamber of Commerce, or it could be, I don't know how you want to measure it. So, but those are what I was thinking.
Comments?
Question.
Councilman Osborne?
You know, I always believe that Bill has, you know, the strength with the strategic plan, and so I always, you know, listen to what he has to say, and most of the time agree of how this all goes about. I think my question, I certainly believe that the airport master plan doesn't belong there. I know it's going to be part of all the master plans that we put under, and we'll do as a city, I'm sure, the best we can to implement what we can even, you know, be responsible for. But the first item, though, I guess what gets me, since it is specific to the electronic plan review system, I guess I see this, and this is obviously I'm going to be wrong because I just don't deal with strategic plans, but to me this would be an action item because this is a 3-year plan. And to me, I see that as something specific that's an action item for the goal that was already encompassed. So that's the only thing I have to say is because this is what I thought I was learning about strategic plans is that we have these focuses, we have these goals, and then we have the action items that we don't have to specifically say. So maybe I'm just wrong, but that's what I thought that would have been under as an action item.
You want to address that, Pam?
Yeah, Councilmember Osborne, that was my assessment of it was, you know, we've set out a process improvement goal, and just so you know, I'm jumping a little ahead in the presentation, but as we sort of receive the council approved strategic plan, departments will, all of these goals cut across many departments, and so it's incumbent upon the departments then to identify the action items that move all these needles. And so this electronic plan review, which is in progress and alive and well, very much would help move that needle of one of those sort of 50 automations that we would be tackling over the next 3 years. So I agree. You can call it out or not to your content. I think it is something that will get done and that does fit within that existing goal.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this? Yes, Bill?
Normally, I would agree with Pam on this situation. However, this has been in a previous 3-year strategic plan. It is theoretically reaching its conclusion, and yes, it should be done as a matter of business practice and not necessarily in strategy. However, since it has not been completed in the last 3 years and is only 50% complete, if that number is correct, then, and it is important to all of us. If that is the case, then I strongly suggest we call it out specifically and not allow it to get buried. If we believe that this is about economic vitality and improving that business process so that we can advance our small businesses and our development process, then we want to call it out specifically. And if we were saying for the very first time we should do this, then I would say I'm okay with rolling it in. But because this thing has been dragging itself along, it's been moving, but it's been moving very slowly. I think we ought to call it out. And if we achieve it by 2019, then great. We've got it's an easy win to put on the board for accomplishments in the plan instead of rolling it into the other strategies. But we at least can easily say to our community, we have made this particular thing a priority, and it is now one of the goals that we've asked the staff to accomplish.
Thank you, Bill. Council, comments? Sherry?
I can go either way. I see that it seems to be already covered in what we have, but obviously if one council member or more really think we need to put that out there, I'm okay with putting it out there, and then if it's taken care of by the next plan, we can take it back out again. I don't think that's a continuing goal, so, you know, I think it's almost done, but if it needs that much, I'm okay.
I'm okay with it.
Everybody feels that, say, I'm thinking. So what do you want?
Leave it in.
I guess we're talking leave it in.
Okay, great. Thank you for
Right.
that. So I heard consensus around that one. And again, as you mentioned, it's a breathing document. So we might have a great update for you in a few months, and it's a moot point.
So you're saying we're finished?
With
got
we
one
have
more?
we have 2 more focus areas.
Yeah, okay, so how
we're,
much
we're
more we
almost
have?
there. 2 more focus areas.
Right.
So basically 2
I mean,
more.
I've delayed this time, so we're just going to keep going for it, all right?
Okay. Was
I
there
don't want to stop the conversation, because we stop it, we go to the other meeting, and then it takes all this time to get you all back into this again, and asking questions we've already asked, or so I'd rather just keep it. I already checked with a lawyer, it says, and I will ask the city clerk, do we have a list of people that want to come before us tonight and speak? Do we have a list? For the regular meeting.
Mayor, we do have some presentations. We do have some folks from Phoenix here.
Okay, all right,
and-
but not a citizen coming forth with.
No, I don't have any speaker
All right,
cards at
let's
this
just
point.
keep going.
Okay, I do want to clarify, Councilmember Hampton did bring up Small Business Innovation Hub. Is it the desire of council at this time to try to pursue that, or we'll continue kind of on the operational level pursuing those as part of our economic development strategy within that department?
I'm for you, I'm for
I'm
that.
operational.
Okay, all right, you got that one.
Thank you.
Continue.
All right, and sense of community. We have increasing the attendance at city events by 30% by fiscal year 2021. This is one that would require to achieve a combination of increasing attendance at the existing city events that we have, as well as adding some new city events. And our Parks Department has taken a look at potential supplementals and things that would help result in that longer term. The second revolves around creating an additional 100 Goodyear ambassadors through city-offered engagement programs by fiscal year 2021. So this takes a look at some of the more in-depth programs that we offer in the city, like the LEAD program, like our CERT program, where citizens really sort of commit to being a part of learning about city operations and giving back to the community in some form or another. And so when we look at over a 3-year time period in those program offerings, we would be looking at increasing that number. And then finally, goal 3, this is one that looks substantially different than what was discussed at the retreat, and so I just want to explain why. So the goal as proposed is to complete a bike pedestrian study of shaded paths and sidewalk in fiscal year 2019 to identify projects for future consideration. This one looks a little different than some of the other goals. That is because when we walked away from the retreat, there was a general statement of let's increase our shaded paths by 30%. I sat down with the department, engineering, planning, and so on to kind of discuss a goal like that. And what resulted from that conversation was really, okay, how is a path defined? How much shade does there have to be on a path for it to meet the needs of a shaded path? You know, are we counting a street bike line the same way we are a multi-use trail, et cetera, et cetera? And so it sort of came to light that, you know, you've already identified your sidewalk gap program as a priority, for example. And so this would be an opportunity to identify that long-term strategy of making a more walkable, bikeable city, but kind of slicing it up into a more manageable slice so that we even know what our baseline is to be able to then project how we can make improvements. So that's really the story behind that. So I welcome your feedback on those 3 goals.
Comments?
Go ahead. I'll talk last.
Sherry?
My only concern was I don't want to be obligated. I hope this was an in-house study, that we purchase another expensive study. That was only
I'm sorry,
my
would you say that one more time?
that we purchase another expensive study. That if it's in-house, I'm okay with 3. If the whole thing is get consultants and stuff, it seems a little.
I know at one time the discussion was around working with one of the universities, so looking at a graduate student that could perform this.
I'm good. It's free.
That was one idea. So again, this is sort of a longer term strategy. You would, through the budget process, anything that would have those financial implications, that's where you would start to see those areas.
Yes, we have additional help here.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Actually, to Councilperson Lauritano's point, we did meet with engineering and planning and so forth to figure out what the council's intent was with this topic was, and to try and attack it from the most efficient and expeditious route possible. And in doing so, it was actually not to utilize a graduate student. It was to ask for a budget supplemental. So we actually have that in the budget supplemental process right now. And the thought process of that is we do completely understand fiduciary responsibility, and we don't want to waste city's money either to purchase another study. But to advance this in the council's time frame, to not only understand what's missing, but then allocate future CIP funds to actually have it built, it would compress that time frame, if that makes sense.
I like that.
I'm okay leaving it in, and then when you ask for the money,
In the microphone, please, because can't hear
I
you.
said I'm okay leaving it in. Then I just was kind of curious. I'm just concerned of more studies.
I mean, I think most of us would like not to have a study if it's not necessary, and if our staff is able to take care of this. Wally?
Mayor?
I'd like to, Bill, you want to talk first?
I don't know the order now.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm going to have Wally speak. She spoke. Great. Wally, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to address number 2, the create additional 100 ambassadors. We have 3 major programs that I'm really aware of: the Citizens Academy, CERT, and LEAD. And if we do 30 in each program, that's 90 for the first year, and these programs are running. I'd like to have a little higher number than 100. I don't think that's, I'd like to see it a little bit higher so that we could do 100 in the first year and be done.
That's an additional 100.
Well, are they count, well,
I don't know what they're counting.
I don't know what additional in that part means. We've already got all these ambassadors, and to me, we're just adding to that group. But maybe I'm reading it wrong. Well, anyway.
Vice Mayor,
all right.
Vice Mayor Campbell, your point is very well taken. We did look at the numbers, and so we defined the current programs as LEAD, which really LEAD kind of replaced the Citizens Academy.
No, I'm talking about the police academy.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
okay, good clarification. So we have LEAD, we have the Citizen Police Academy, and we have CERT. We aim for 40 participants in LEAD. Last year, 26 of them successfully completed the program. In the Citizens Police Academy, we did graduate 35 in the calendar year 2017. And then, forgive me, I had the CERT numbers, but they didn't make it in my binder. So if you would like to, we can absolutely take that number back and come up with a slightly higher
I
stretch
just think it'd
goal.
look better than higher.
Sure.
To me, 100
I
is
will-
not very many in a city of 81,000 people.
I will
mean,
absolutely, if it's pleases council, I will go back to the coordinators of those 3 programs, and we can take a look at if there's a little bit loftier goal. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's okay.
Also,
So,
who else is
it's-
going to speak up on this? Bill, you're on.
Okay, thanks, sorry. I thought I heard Christopher say that their intent was to hire a consultant to do that bike and shade thing.
He's coming
Is that
back
correct?
up. Bill, just hold, he's going to address it again.
Mayor, Council, yes, sir, that's correct. We have a budget supplemental that budget supplemental request in currently the system now, which will be coming for council consideration during the budget process.
Okay, so that is, from what I heard, the opposite of what Sherry said was, I don't want to do a study for this process. So, and then I heard Sherry say, I'm okay with that. So I'm confused at what Sherry believes or doesn't believe. That doesn't,
I'm
and
going
I
to
don't know
let
if
Sherry
that's
speak
germane.
in a moment here. Thank you, Bill.
Bill, this is Sherry. After hearing from Christopher, I'm going to save my judgment. I'm okay leaving it in there and save my judgment until we get to the budget process to see what the consultant or what we would get for the money.
Okay, now I understand your position. The other side, to just kind of point out the polar opposite of this discussion is, we're saying we're going to complete a biker pedestrian study of the shaded areas and to identify future capital improvement products. If we say we're leaving that in, then it goes back to the 100% completely funded discussion of, if we say it, that means we're going to do it. And if we're going to use money to fund a study, then and then we decide not to take any action on it, haven't we in fact thrown that money away? And then secondarily to that, if the argument is, well, we'll just see how it makes its way through the budget process, if we choose not to fund it, then why are we, we've got a goal in our strategic plan that says we're going to do this, and now we're not going to do it. So I just wonder the value of leaving it in and not considering adding it later after it makes its way through the budget process.
Yep, Councilmember Stitt, Mayor. So just as you think through this, it's really, in order to achieve a longer term outcome, if one of your key priorities is to increase shaded walking bike paths, at a certain point, the timeline may expand considerably and that sort of thing, but at a certain point, these are some of the phase steps that would need to take place in order to meet that goal. And so the question for you all is this a burning priority for you at this time, given the other priorities you're faced with? And if so, we are happy to adjust the timeline or maybe reconsider some options on how to operationalize it. But the key question is, this would be step one in achieving that long-term vision of a walkable, bikeable community.
Vice Mayor?
So when I was talking about number 2, I was going to address number 3. So my number 3 is, I am not aware that Goodyear has a lot of shade trees and sidewalks now. I'm more interested in finding out where we need sidewalks and planning to do some of those myself. But I am really not in favor of doing a study and spending a lot of money on something that we probably are not going to do anything with.
Mayor, Council, if I may, this is totally obviously up to the council in regards to how to wordsmith this. If, just from a practical operational standpoint, department level standpoint, if I may, if we have this budget request coming to you that you'll see during the budget process, and if council accepts it at this time, we're confident that we can hit the dates that's indicated in this particular goal as written. If council chooses not to fund the study, then we as staff would come back and evaluate other opportunities to still meet council's desire, but the schedule, it would expand, because we wouldn't have the horsepower, if you will, to execute this full study at a staff level in just fiscal year 2019, given the amount of other development activity going on in the city. Excuse me. So we would come back to you, and more than likely, with some sort of revision process with the strategic goal, change this a little bit to reflect the operational requirements of us being able to execute, if that makes sense.
Councilman Vasillo?
I can appreciate Bill's position on, if we put it in there, we've got to hit it, but there are going to be things in here that, for whatever reason, stuff happens and we won't hit. I don't have a problem keeping it in, but I'm not committed to it till I see the other requests on the supplementals. And the other requests on supplementals, something might come up and forward, and if that's something that we have as a goal of ours, maybe it won't be 2019. Maybe it will, but maybe it's going to take your supplemental. Maybe it'll be pushed out to 2020. But I don't want to make a decision on funding it until we see what all the other request is, because if that 3% is accurate on our growth and our general fund operating revenue, there's going to be a lot of requests that aren't going to get funded. So I'd rather see them all come in before we make such a decision.
Any other comment? So we're saying leave it in right now, and I feel the same way, but anybody else? I think this can be adjusted at that time.
I think keep it in, but refer room for changing it. I mean, to expand out the timeline or however it is that we
have the ability to change a number of these if the fact that we incorporate this, and then all of a sudden we look at this and we say, we thought this was the right direction, but we're feeling edgy about this, we'd like to change it. We have that opportunity always, okay?
Absolutely, Mayor. And as we get reestablished on a timeline where it's sort of a January approval process and then budgets in summer, we have those mid-year checkpoints to balance the strategic plan with budget decisions.
All right, we go on there.
Okay, so I'm hearing consensus on these three goals, but we will take another look at that 100 ambassadors number and consider increasing it to a higher stretch goal. So additional feedback and sense of community came from Council Member Sipp around city website use and social media contacts. I had a chance just very briefly to speak with our communications department and just to give you some insight there. So the city website usage goal, and Councilmember Sipp did let us know, I defer to staff on kind of the right number and time frame and so on. The city website use as a metric was actually decreased in importance at the operational level due to our work with kind of optimizing our search engines, that now someone can type into Google and don't even have to click onto our website to find their answer. And so city website clicks actually have gone down as other things have sort of taken the place of that. That being said, if the council's direction is that you wish to see an outcome around online engagement, we can certainly work through that. Kind of same thing with social media contacts. We would just want to clarify and define, is that followers, is that you want us posting more, that sort of thing. What is the kind of the desired end goal of placing a strategic focus on this area? So we are happy to work with our communications staff around this, but we really want to gain an understanding of what is the intent behind these suggestions and what does council wish to see in front of them.
Councilman Loretano?
I think the overall concept is a very good goal with social media. I don't know if we want to be specific because like 3 years ago, there wasn't really Snapchat being used, and now, so I would be okay with a social media increase goal by maybe the 25% or whatever you think is the right number. I'm not going to be that picky about that, but maybe just an overall social media, because there may be the new platform that comes out that everyone uses in 6 months that we don't know about.
Changes.
But I think social media is great.
Mayor?
Councilman Osborne.
Actually, I was just going to say that really to encompass all of it, to me, it's more the digital footprint, and that which would obviously be the website and social media and the increase of the engagement. And I think that that's something that's more measurable, the footprint of it all, rather than specific to each one of them.
Councilman Stipp?
I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Thank you.
I am hearing for the very first time the answer to these questions that were sent out. So my immediate knee-jerk reaction to the comment about the city website use has actually decreased for whatever reason makes me then question, why do we continue to say, oh, we posted it on the website so anyone's got access to it? If people aren't being driven to our website, then why are we posting things to it? So, and why have we invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in its rebuild? So if that's the answer, I'm okay with that. Then we need to retool that entire process, because I would imagine that it's far easier to find some things in other places than it is on our website, because our website at times can be extremely hard, once again, to navigate. So And that was the genesis of that particular thing, is we keep saying, go to the website, go to the website. Well, then let's document that the money that we've spent on redesigning it and maintaining it is worth it. If it's not worth it, then we got to come up with something else. That's the only reason the website thing was on there. As far as social media, I didn't call anything out because I'm not a social media expert, and I love to hear that everyone says, yeah, we need to increase our social media contacts. How and what and how to write that, I'm leaving to those that do it and that know better. But the emphasis from me was if we're driving everything to social media, then we ought to be maximizing or achieving more than perhaps we are now. That's the whole point of having a goal, and that's the whole point of this sense of community, is trying to connect people to the city. And if the way is through social media and the website, then, man, we got to have a goal about that. Otherwise, again, strategically, what are we spending our money on?
Thank you, Bill. Go ahead, present.
Thank you, Councilmember Stipp. This is Shireen Zaya, Communications Manager. I appreciate getting a little insight because, we weren't quite sure what it was that you were looking for, but hearing where your thought process is behind these additional goals, we will definitely take that into consideration, go back, work with staff, and come up maybe something that does encompass all digital platforms. We do put everything on our website as a resource for information for those that are searching it. But again, when you Google search, sometimes that page comes up with a little bit of a description, so you don't necessarily visit that page. But hearing what you're saying, definitely take that into consideration and come up with a goal.
Councilman, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I would hope that communications would take another look at the website. It's very difficult to use, and people complain to me that it is so hard to use and it's so busy. And I have to use the website every council meeting because I do not have a program on my city computer that allows me to have what everyone else has because I have elected not to use an iPad. So I have to go into government, and then I have to whip over to view agendas and documents and that sort of thing. And then when I open it up, then I have to find the date. And then when I find the date, then I have to click on the number. And then when I click on the number, it doesn't show me any of the presentations. It just simply gives me the council staff report. So if I am a Joe Blow citizen watching and are wanting to know what's being said, I can't find it on that website as just an average everyday citizen. But I would think that if our website was a little bit more user friendly and maybe not so technical, we would have a lot more hits than we do.
Councilman Vazzillo.
I think I agree with a lot of the general discussion. If we can figure out a way to get more hits on the website and social media, because I know with me, when you post something, I just forward it to my page because I have my own page as well to try to create additional, people viewing this. On the website, the only thing I would suggest on that, because I've gone in there at times, is if there's a way that if you just Google City of Goodyear, it pulls up and somewhere on the main page, there's a button that says current city events and activities. And they hit the button and pow, here's the week's worth of views, or here's 2 weeks worth of views. Just a little button, that's a hot button on there that takes you right to the events. And that way, somebody only has to go to get to the main, which is the City of Goodyear, and then hit that hot button, and that hot button will take you to whatever events happen to be that week, And it's a great way to advertise because at least most people I deal with in school, they're on that thing all the time. So they're constantly surfing the phone, surfing the web, and looking for things. So that's how they get their news. That's how they get their information. So anything we can do to pick that up, that's fantastic.
Other comments?
All right, we'll take that back and work on a goal around our digital footprint and our reach. Okay, everyone ready for the last focus area? All right, so quality of life, we had 3 goals come out of the retreat. The first had to do with our gathering spaces and recreation, to construct our new recreation facility and increase participation in programs and activities to foster a healthy lifestyle by 30% by fiscal year 2021. And this is another goal that revolves around a combination of leveraging existing assets and programs that we have, boosting those attendance, as well as with the construction of our new facility, offering a whole host of new programs as well. So there may be some budgetary impacts to get to that number, but we know it's in line with where council's headed. The second, ensure a safe community by increasing police officer proactive time to 40% and improve fire response times by 15 seconds by fiscal year 2021. We did work with the police and fire departments on their existing metrics and talked about sort of what was achievable based on what we anticipate in terms of new stations and things like that. And then the third, by fiscal year 2021, to ensure availability of water to support growth of the city for the following 10 years. And this has to do with a lot of the infrastructure investment we're making, bringing the surface water treatment plant on board. You know, the first drops of water won't be coming out of that within that time frame, but the infrastructure will be put in to help achieve this goal. So I would like to hear feedback on those three goals, and then we will wrap up with the final recommendations.
Good. Comments?
I just had one.
Councilman
Actually,
Osborne?
while I appreciate that you spoke to the chiefs, I was concerned that, especially for police, that the proactive time of 40%, I mean, I didn't know if we were looking at a true budget issue by saying, okay, to be able to achieve that, we're talking about, you know, two more, how many more officers it was going to take to be in the force to be able to achieve that. So, Chief, you went through all of that, I take it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Osborne. Yes, great question. Obviously, we improve our proactive time, first of all, by staffing. You know, the positive news there is that for the first time in many years, we have all of our positions filled. By June, when all those officers get done training, we will have 10 additional officers out there solo on the road. So that's going to help those numbers rise. Right now, we're probably about 26%. But in addition to that, more importantly, is our efficiencies. And so we have things like online reporting, which will come online within the next month or so, hopefully. And that will allow people to call in or on their computer report crimes, and it'll save our officers time from responding out and handling those calls. In addition, we have our e-citation program that we've talked about recently. That will save officer time. Our officers are now issued iPhones, so when they're out in the field, they can take photographs of crime scenes and things they need to photograph, and they can upload automatically from in the field those pictures, which saves them from having to go back to the office and upload those photos, which took time. So in addition, civilianization. So we've been hiring police assistants, and they go out, they write reports, they do things that a police officer would do, saving those police officers time. So with all of those things combined, I'm confident that we can reach out that 40%.
Well, congratulations.
Yes.
That's great to hear. Right? I
And
love that.
that's also an ICMA recommended percentage too. So.
Thank you, Chief. Any other? All
All
right.
right, I'm seeing consensus on those three goals. And then finally, we had council feedback in the quality of life area. One was regarding enhancing the SCADA system. I mean, that's another one, again, purview of council if you want to elevate it to the level of a strategic goal. Otherwise, that is taken into consideration as that is ongoing work that's happening. We did add staff to support our SCADA system, as well as continually leveraging that technology. And then the second feedback was sort of and Councilmember Sipp mentioned this at the beginning, a general idea around transportation. We are absolutely open to ideas around that. We will say at just last week's budget retreat, there was a lot of conversation around transportation, and I think in a longer time frame than this plan update is taking place, there will be some information and discussion provided around various aspects of both public transit as well as transportation infrastructure. And so if council has some direction for us as far as, something concrete we can try to turn around in the next couple weeks, we'll take that. Otherwise, we'd love to take that as a topic for the next strategic plan update. So with that, I'll take your feedback.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Stipp.
All right, so the SCADA thing I'd like to withdraw. I included that as because it was in the last thing, but I completely agree with Pam, and on reflection, it doesn't belong there, so I'd like to withdraw that. Secondarily, the discussion about transportation, the next plan is 3 years from now, is that correct, Pam?
The plan has a 3-year outlook, but we will do annual updates. So this fall, we will have a process where you will have 2 progress reports on how we're doing on the plan, and you'll have an opportunity to modify goals, add goals, et cetera. So within, give or take 12 months of now, you would have an opportunity to add a transportation goal if you so wished.
So the discussion that we had last week in the budget about expanding Zoom service and all the rest of that, you don't consider that a goal worth putting in the plan right now, and you would prefer that it wait until the following fiscal year?
Are you asking the council that, or are you asking her that?
Asking Pam that question since she is representing the staff's belief that it doesn't belong.
Thank you.
I think my comment was simply if council has a very specific strategic direction around Zoom, for example, that we could take back and try to work with staff to establish as a 3-year goal in the next couple of weeks, then I think we can make that happen. However, if it's a more broad, we want to take a look at many facets of transportation, then I would encourage the next moving forward with the work sessions and so on that were requested and identifying what that strategic goal is at the next annual update, if that makes sense.
All right, council comments.
I'm fine if that's what staff seems to think is necessary. I'm disappointed that staff does not want to address transportation as a goal, and has not even a suggestion for it. But if we need to wait, I'm fine with waiting, and I'm not going to belabor that issue any longer. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but that's my opinion on it. So.
His suggestion. Did he put that in? I'm sorry.
Yes.
So that was yours. So what you're saying, Bill, just to clarify, you're saying to take it off if that's the will of the council. Is that what you just said?
Yes, ma'am. If the rest of the council doesn't have a burning desire for transportation and wants to wait, then I'm fine with that.
Oh, I'm not sure they don't have a burning one, but I just think there might be another way. Councilman Pizzillo.
From my perspective, when it comes to transportation, if my recollection serves me, was looking forward to maybe some type of a work session from staff to lay out some more data on the needs of what our citizens want from a transportation standpoint, and then kind of take that and build from there some goals. Because of that, I don't have any idea to add on this at this time, because I wanted some more input from staff on some more matrix on what citizens are requesting out there. So I don't have any problem putting it off until we find out some more information on what all this piece is, for transportation.
Councilman Osborne.
I agree. I believe that transportation did come up because I think we all do value it and see that there is a need. We just don't know the full picture of what that need is, and I think that's why we really need that work session
Or how to get
first.
there.
Exactly.
Or how to get there. That's the big thing. Any other comments? Because, it's not just Goodyear. It's MAG. It's the other cities. I mean, this is a huge subject. And it's one that we're definitely not letting go. We have our citizens wanting more rides, more buses, more door-to-door. You know, Wally, you talked. So there's, dial-a-ride. So there's really a lot connected with this. So are we all right with this, taking this off right now? Okay, so be it.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to next steps briefly. So I got clear direction tonight that there is consensus in support of the recommended goals with a couple minor changes, and there are 2 new goals that staff will be exploring as relates to digital communications and sort of staff development and training. If it pleases council now, I would propose that we be able to take this final plan back to you in a regular business meeting for approval, assuming that you have entrusted us to develop goals and ones that will be operationally relevant. And so if that happens, you know, our hope would be within a month to have a plan in front of you for approval. And then we will begin our 6-month reporting cycle, and next fall pursue our next kind of planning conversation and what form will take place.
Thank you, Bill. I can't see your nodding head. I can see here, so just give me a high side sound.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And Mayor, when this work session is over, I'll be ending my call.
All right, great, thank you. Looking around the council, I get nodding heads. Okay, well, before we finish, I want to extend my thanks to all of the staff that brought these reports together. And Pam, as I said, it's been a long road on this, but you've got a star on your paper now. This you did it. This brought it to, and look at the response you got tonight. And we actually did something, and you have now to go back and work it. So we appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Mayor and Council. This is not an easy one to grasp, and I really appreciate you being willing to stick with it tonight and push through on it. Thank you so much.
That's one thing we do stick with it. All right, so a couple things I want to do. First of all, I want to apologize to the people that were in the audience that wanted to come up here sooner, because we usually start at 6 o'clock. This event tonight we had here with the work session is very, very difficult. And once you get the council starting to talk about it and coming to decisions, and to break it up in the middle and come back and get that same kind of feeling, you lose it. And so I made the mayor's tough decision and said no. And Brandon, I appreciate you considering the people and the residents and all that, but it was one of those times I just had to take over and say, I'm sorry, no, we're going to finish this. And we did, and congratulations, council. So, all right, so we're going with, no, I don't believe there's any information we have to pursue onto this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to with no further, I'm going to adjourn it. And then we're going to start the regular session with well, we need a 10-minute break, so I won't do that. All right, so I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and we're going to give you 10 minutes. Is that enough? To start the other meeting. This meeting's adjourned.